Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our May 10th Town Council meeting. I would like to start by saying let's continue to keep Ukraine in our thoughts and prayers as the turmoil continues. For this evening's conference agenda, I have invited two members of the Human Relations Commission to make an announcement, informative information on upcoming events. First up, we have Fanny.
Council President.
Yes, Madam.
Sorry, I have to do the opening statement.
Hey, I was anxious to get started.
I know, I'm sorry. This is to inform the general public that this meeting is being held in compliance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975. The annual notice was emailed to the Star Ledger and filed in the Township Clerk's office on November 24th, 2021, and published in the West Orange Chronicle on December 2nd, 2021. Councilwoman Castellino.
Present.
Councilwoman Matute Brown.
Present.
Councilman Rutherford.
Here.
Councilwoman Williams.
Present.
Council President McCartney.
Present. Okay, Fanny, now your turn.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting United Asian Voices of West Orange to say a few words about the upcoming celebration. I am standing in place of my colleague, Caroline Cam Harris, who is a member of the Human Relations Commission. I am not, but we together, along with 4 other West Orange residents, are steering committee members of United Asian Voices of West Orange. We are a volunteer community group that formed last year. And part of our mission is to raise awareness of Asian cultures and to lift up our voices and to collaborate with the Board of Ed, with the Township, with community groups to raise awareness of Asian American issues, including the AAPI curriculum mandate that was recently passed by Governor Murphy. It was passed earlier this year and goes into effect this September, which the Board of Ed is working on implementing along with other inclusive curriculum. But back to this Sunday's upcoming celebration. It is in honor of the nationally celebrated AAPI Heritage Month. Again, so AAPI stands for Asian American and Pacific Islander. The United Asian Voices of West Orange, in collaboration with the West Orange Human Relations Commission and the Board of Ed, is putting together this festive showcase, and it is filled with student performances. We have singers, dancers, classical musicians, and poets. Again, all students. And this will be a wonderful afternoon this Sunday, May 15th, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the high school Tarnoff Gym. It is a free community event and it is open to all. We welcome everyone, just as we have done to past celebrations, including the February Lunar New Year celebration also at the high school. So we hope that the West Orange community will come out and join us in celebration of Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Thank you for your support. We look forward to seeing you there.
Fanny, thank you very much. And great news on the Board of Ed curriculum implementation. So good luck with that.
Thank you.
And thank you. Thank you for, I understand that we met Kimberly Hill. That was the Montclair State student at our last council meeting, and she attended the Human Relations Commission meeting, and she's also presenting ideas for you. So probably one more event that the HRC can work on.
Oh, absolutely. A holy festival. That would be wonderful. Yes.
Sounds fun. Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and if I could just say one last thing.
Of course.
If folks want to connect with United Asian Voices of West Orange, we are on Facebook. We also have an email, which is simply UAV@WestOrange spelled out @gmail. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks again. And also from the HRC, we have Liz Milham. Liz also has an announcement.
Yes, good evening. Yes, I am a commissioner on the Human Relations Commission, and it's just my honor to inform that there's going to be a Haitian flag raising celebration this Monday, May 16th at between 6 and 7 p.m. at West Orange Town Hall. We will be just talking about the independence of Haiti, being able to celebrate the Haitian flag, and our theme is sovereignty. We will also have Sergeant Nelson Cyprin of the United States Army, which is a Haitian American Army, a sergeant that will be our main speaker that day. So we're really just excited for a just meaningful celebration and to raise this flag on such a historic week of all New Jersey Haitian flag raisings that will be happening throughout the state.
Thank you very much. These ceremonies seem to be growing really beautifully and inviting guests into to make it very worthwhile. Congratulations, and we'll see you on Monday.
Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Council President.
Yes,
I'm having a problem with Councilwoman Williams. I promoted her. She moved to an attendee. I promoted her. Oh, she's coming in now.
it's coming back.
Okay, great. Sorry to interrupt.
Here she is. So though we started late, we still do have a few minutes left if we wanted to go over our council liaison announcements. Councilwoman Castellino?
Absolutely. So also in the township, and thank you to our two guest speakers for all the work that you're doing for our community with your events. We also celebrate this month Older Americans Month, and our Senior Services Department has a beautiful activities for our seniors this year. May 19th, there's Salute to Seniors Luncheon. There's a pickleball tournament, various other events. So please make sure you go to the website or call the senior offices at 973-325-4105 and join the celebration, because we want to celebrate our older Americans in West Orange. And we value all of the programming that that our Senior Services Department has put together. So we look forward to that. In regards to my liaison appointment with the Downtown Alliance, we're very busy this next month. Saturday, June 4th is our street fair. Ms. Brill had posted it here. We have a car show. The classic car show will be down by the Edison Lofts, the Wine and Beer Garden, over 100 booths, street performers, free admission to the museum. So it's just a great day. We are hoping for great weather. We have not hosted this event in 2 years, and we're really excited. If you go on the website, there's parking at 80 Main Street, also at Washington Street School. Ms. Brill is trying to get golf carts to transport individuals who may not want to walk that far to the event. If you need handicap parking, we have arranged that, but you need the official handicap parking sign, and you could park at Edison Lofts parking lot off of Charles Street. So we're really hoping for a fun, full day. The Howling Poets will be performing, and the beer garden. So yeah, we're really excited about this. We look forward to it. So please visit the downtown website. Also, we'll be launching the downtown mobile app, our townwide mobile app. If my colleagues have not had a chance to go to your Android or iPhone Play Store, please download it. It's a light bulb. I'm not sure, Ms. Brill, do you have a picture of it for them tonight? I know we had it up last time. It's live. Anyone could download it. However, full disclosure, we're still tweaking it. So hopefully by next month, we'll have all the kinks worked out of it and we'll go full promotion and advertising it. Right now, we've been asking various groups that are on the app to look at their information and just getting as many pair of eyes on it as we can to make sure we get all the kinks out of it before we start pushing it out. And we have a thoughtful PR plan with Suasion and Joe Fagan, and the Public Relations Commission will be working on that. We'll also be at the street fair getting the public to download the app, and the Public Relations Commission will be hosting a raffle. And so we'll be raffling off a prize, getting folks to come out and download the new mobile app. So we're excited, and please contact myself or Ms. Brill if anyone has any question on its usage, or if you have any ideas what tweakings could improve it. So that's we're excited about that. And last, the Downtown Alliance, we are off to Richmond, Virginia next week. A few of the board members and myself going to the national conference. So we're very excited about that. There hasn't been a live conference in obviously over 2 years. It's the first time for myself traveling with the group. And we look forward to seeing some great inspirational projects that is, throughout the country, and bringing them back home here to implement. So every time we go to one of these events, that's how one of our members discovered the Downtown app. And we also discover event planner with Downtown Thursdays, which will be coming this summer. So we're very excited. And last announcement, the Friends of the Library's book sale will be the day of the street fair, and that will be held at the library. We'll have library representation on Main Street. So we look forward to raising funds for the West Orange Public Library. With all that, Council President, I am done for the evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman Matu-Brown.
Thank you, Council President. Just I'll share with you that the Board of OSPAC had its meeting on April 11th. I know during the last council meeting, I was not very talkative because I didn't really have a lot of energy to speak, but just to bring you all up to date, I did circle back with our CFO and our risk assessment person, because the concern of Pleasant Valley Production Board is that they carry the main liability of the insurance. Mr. Gross is working now with the chair of the of the Pleasant Valley Productions Inc. to consider what other alternatives can be done. It is my understanding that it is not a large amount of the premium, but they do have concerns that they're the primary liability carriers, and at some point wanted to be able to discuss that amongst first the BOSPAC board and then the council. They're also going to be looking to discuss some changes in the agreement with respect to being able to go outside of nonprofits to be able to raise more funds. They are approached regularly by different events coordinators to be able to host events at OSPAC, but because the licensing agreement with the township, the municipality, only calls for nonprofit use, they're very limited in being able to expand beyond that. That notwithstanding, they have a full calendar already scheduled for this upcoming spring and summer. So very much looking forward to that. That at the time when the board decides to revisit the ordinance, hopefully before we get too far down the budget process, we'll bring that again to the council, something more formidable for the council to consider. With respect to the Cannabis Task Force, we are not currently meeting, as we have made the recommendations that the task force has been comfortable making. So we have our last two that were supported by the council, which were two residents of West Orange. I sent an email earlier to Council President with respect to the resolutions still not having been received, signed by them, so they can go ahead and proceed. As you know, Peace of Mind has a conditional license already approved by the state, and they're on a timeline. So the 2 weeks that they've been waiting for is really detrimental to their progress and work. So hopefully we can get those out to them as soon as possible. I do acknowledge that it was a late addition to the council agenda. Madam Clerk did email all of us those resolutions after the fact because the packets had already gone out, so we all had them in our email. But we, as a task force, decided that we were no longer going to, and the chief of police also, as our chief staff of operations, has also updated the website and the automatic email response to indicate that we are at this time no longer accepting applications. That may change depending on what the state decides with what we've already sent up. What we don't want to do is overcrowd those who we have supported and make it more challenging for them to be able to be successful. So the state has said anywhere from 3 months to beyond, but hopefully we'll be able to get in within those 3 months. But that is all I have now. All of the questions that are being asked, because we're still receiving emails, are receiving the updated automatic notice that applications, if we're accepting any more applications, there'll be a request for applications put forth publicly on our website and noted in the newspaper. But for the time being, we're kind of at a standstill. That's all I have for you, Council President. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And I responded to your email before I saw Mark Moon's email, so I do have the resolutions and they'll be signed and sent back first thing in the morning. Okay. Councilman Rutherford. Good evening.
Thank you, Council President. Tomorrow night is the Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board meeting. We continue to invite the public to join us. Our Open Space Rec Committee meeting was canceled last week, so our next one will be, I believe, it's in June. No insurance meeting, and the joint meeting is continuing as scheduled. That's it for me. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Councilwoman Williams.
Thank you, Council President. I have several updates. Let's start with the Rent Leveling Board that will have its virtual meeting on Thursday at 6 p.m. And that information for access is on the website, westorange.org. The Economic Development Commission will host its next meeting virtually via Zoom on Tuesday, 5/17 at 6 p.m. The Historic Preservation Commission will hold its next meeting via Zoom on May 18th. And the Municipal Alliance Committee held a lunch and learn on Thursday, April 28th on cannabis use, debunking the myths, with special guest panelists from ADAPT, Chief Abbott from the West Orange Police Department, Prosecutor William Nefsey from the Essex County Prosecutor's Office, and Dr. Teresa Redling from Cooperman Barnabas. Extremely informative and posted on the Municipal Alliance page of the Township website. Juneteenth is coming up June 19th, and we have put together a coalition of stakeholders from the community, different organizations and groups who had been very involved in Juneteenth last year. And we have come together for a tremendous celebration of Juneteenth activities in West Orange, commencing with a flag raising hosted by the West Orange Human Relations Commission. That is going to be on Thursday, June 16th at 5 p.m. That will be at Town Hall with food trucks, a DJ, special guest speakers, and then that will be followed by the Nubian Quilters Guild, who will be celebrating their exhibit at the West Orange Public Library called The Threads of Freedom. On Friday, June 17th, we will host a Divers Developers Golf outing at Rock Spring Golf Club. We will host, that is an all-day activity. Registration is available online. We will have a illumination fireworks display that evening, family fun activities at the Rock. Please join and come and bring your family and friends. Also, there'll be food trucks there, followed by a fireworks illumination show starting at 9 o'clock for about 15 minutes. We'll also have on Saturday at the Arts Council, the Juneteenth Images Triumphant exhibit that will start at 12 p.m. We know that the official Juneteenth holiday falls on Father's Day this year. So we're hoping that all of our fathers have a wonderful Juneteenth/Father's Day holiday. And then we'll follow up and close out the celebration by shopping locally and empowering our Black businesses. And we'll have information on the Black businesses that are located within and throughout West Orange. And we encourage economic opportunities and shopping local. That is going to be a wonderful, fun weekend long of events. You can get more information about how to register at JuneTee, and that's JUNETEE.com. And we're excited and looking forward and hoping to see you at one of those many activities. Madam President, I think that is all I have for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was excellent. And I'm so pleased to serve on that committee because it was just so nice to see how everything just came together. Because working with the Arts Council, Joyce Harley and I as the Arts Council, and the Youth Caucus also, Luna Stage, just pulling everyone together, and the Nubian Quilters just sounds extraordinary. So I really look forward to that. Thank you. Busy. Today was a busy day too. Started at 8 o'clock with the Chamber Board meeting. Next Wednesday, May 18th, there will be a noon lunch and learn. Visit westorangechamber.com for more information. And also on June 2nd, for the past 2 years, the Chamber has not had events. We have been meeting virtually, but this will be a community award networking event on June 2nd at the Wilshire Grand. Information is available also at westorangechamber.com. Everyone is invited. At 9:30 this morning, there was a rent a board meeting. Permits and inspection, I'm pleased to report, are complete for a new generator to be installed for the building. And quotes have gone out for a new patio design. So we look forward to seeing how that comes in. And thank you, Councilwoman Castellino, because I had the senior events also about the pickleball and the senior luncheon at Rock Spring. The Friends of Thomas Edison on Sunday, May 15th, we're doing a fundraiser at 4:30 to help raising funds to help restore the Black Mariah. As you know, the first movie production studio, right here, invented right here on our main street. So it is not open to the public because it does need repair. And as you know how it rotates on the wooden planks, and you can see there is some disrepair there as well. So we are raising funds to refurbish the Black Mariah. And that is on May 15th. So I invite you to go to Friends of Thomas Edison National Historic Park for more information. For that particular event, we have Director X as one of our guests. We have music director and local musician Jim Keefe providing music for the event, and Dr. Claudie Optekamp. She's the principal academic in the Film Faculty Center for Intellectual Property at the Bournemouth university in the United Kingdom. So just like the film industry has many different features, that's what we are doing for the Black Mariah. There's so much going on at the Arts Council, so please visit woarts.org to see workshops and exhibits, also part of Juneteenth, the Juneteenth event. And last week, May 4th, the West Orange Environmental Commission partnered with the Health Department to distribute reusable bags at ShopRite, Whole Foods, and Family Grocer when the plastic bag ban law went into effect. So we will have more events coming up to continue distributing the reusable bags for our residents. And Planning Board met, our next meeting will be on June 1st, June 1st already at 7:30. At our last meeting, if you recall, we had resolutions about subdividing Mellon Avenue, and that was finally presented to the board. The township owned lots that had been subdivided to be adjacent. They're non-conforming lots, and they will be adjacent to the homeowners there. And next meeting, as I said, is June 1st, Wednesday, June 1st at 7:30. Okay. Thank you. Councilman Rutherford, I see your hand.
Thank you,
Question?
Council. Well, I neglected to make an announcement. The West Orange African Heritage Organization is planning their annual Men Who Cook event. All the proceeds go to scholarships for West Orange High School seniors. COVID claimed this event for a little while, but it is back now. It will be on June 12th from 1 to 5 at the high school. Tickets are $35 in advance, $40 at the door. And for those that want more information, you can go to woaho.org and you can get all the information and registration and be able to register there too. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. I'm glad you remembered. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
This is to inform the general public that this meeting is being held in compliance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975. The annual notice was emailed to the Star Ledger and filed in the Township Clerk's office on November 24th, 2021, and published in the West Orange Chronicle on December 2nd, 2021. Councilwoman Castellino?
Present.
Councilwoman Matute Brown?
Present.
Councilman Rutherford?
Here.
Councilwoman Williams?
Present.
Council President McCartney?
Present.
Present.
Everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
To
of
the flag
America,
of the United
To
States,
the
to the
republic,
republic for which
For
it
which it
stands, one
one
nation,
for which it
under
stands,
God, indivisible,
indivisible,
one
with
nation,
liberty
under
and
God,
justice
with
for
liberty
all.
and
for all.
The council is now in their
justice
public
for
meeting.
all.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
You're
Madam
welcome.
Moderator, we'll start with public comment.
Yes, we have Joe Fagan. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Moderator, and a good evening to you, Madam President, council colleagues, members of the administration, and all those on the call tonight. I am Joe Fagan, Public Information Officer, and thank you for the opportunity to address the West Orange public this evening. Tonight, I was going to remind everyone about two events that are coming up this week to celebrate and promote the cultural experiences within the West Orange community. Of course, they both have been discussed in the conference agenda, so I am not going to repeat that, but I do want to make mention that this past week, there also was an Israeli flag raising on the steps of West Orange Town Hall, and it was a well-attended event in support of the Jewish community here in West Orange. And there was a diplomat there, Israel Nitzan, is the Consul General of Israel, and he was there and gave some very poignant remarks and certainly thanked Mayor Parisi. This past Saturday, April 30th, I conducted the first ever West Orange Town Hall walking history tour. It was attended by about 20 people, including Councilwoman Williams, and it lasted a little over an hour. It included a visual presentation about the history of the West Orange municipal government and other aspects of town history as they relate to Town Hall. I am pleased to announce this evening I have scheduled another Town Hall walking tour for Saturday, May 28th at 11 a.m. This, of course, is open to the public and a free event. So I invite everyone to come out and learn about town history. Anyone who wants to take the tour can register by sending me an email at jfagan@westorange.org. We also have our annual Memorial Day ceremony on Monday, May 30th at 10 a.m. on the steps of Town Hall. I have a special announcement to make this evening regarding this year's ceremony. This Memorial Day will feature the story of Gordon Hanson, who is the recent namesake of a downtown parking lot. Hanson was a 1942 graduate of West Orange High School who was killed 6 weeks before the end of World War II. He is a decorated war hero who received both a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star. When Hanson attended West Orange High School, he played the trumpet in the high school marching band. What is special about this year's ceremony is that I have found Hanson's original trumpet from the West Orange High School marching band from 82 years ago. I tracked it down on a trail through 3 states and found it in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. The current owner has agreed to lend it to me for this year's Memorial Day ceremony so that taps can be played on it to honor Hanson on his actual West Orange High School trumpet from 1942. The trumpet arrived in West Orange 3 weeks ago. A professional musician, Rob Adams of Stone Soup Sympathy of Warren County, has graciously volunteered to play taps on Hanson's trumpet and was actually in West Orange today at the Gordon Hanson parking lot where I filmed him in a practice session on the trumpet. So make sure you put the West Orange Memorial Day calendar on your calendar and what will be a very special and poignant ceremony this year. Thank you, Council President. That concludes my report for this evening, and have a good meeting.
Thank you, Joe. And again, when things come together, sounds like a beautiful addition to the Memorial Day ceremony. Thank you.
Next up, we have Nordia Gibbs. Please state your name and address for the record. You need to unmute.
Oh.
Yeah, you're ready to go.
Oh, hi there. Good evening. My name is Nordia Gibbs, and I am a resident of Orange. Good evening to the members of the council and West Orange residents. On February 15th, I did inquire about the process of obtaining local support to operate a cannabis business within the Township of West Orange. And I was provided the correct information and the ordinance. So thank you for that. My husband and I currently operate a CBD hemp business by the name of Pure Natural Vibes LLC. We've been a certified minority and veteran-owned business, certified by the state since 2019. We entered the cannabis industry back in 2013 after my husband suffered an injury during his deployment to Afghanistan. So our interest and in the industry is very personal. We submitted our application to the township for a micro retail dispensary business on April 14th. We did find a location, a standalone location in B1 with parking. We've gained site control. Our identified location is over 1,000 feet away from the closest school. It's over 1,000 feet away from the closest church. And it's over 1,000 feet away from the other proposed cannabis businesses. And I do know a couple of the members of the council were concerned with zoning and placement of these businesses. As designated by the CRC in the state of New Jersey, we are social equity applicants who reside in an impact zone and also an economically disadvantaged area. So applicants such as ourselves will be prioritized. We did follow up with the township last week based on the submission of our application just to see if it was received. And we did get that kickback email regarding no longer accepting applications, but we were informed, I guess, on a couple of occasions that it was we're receiving macro business applications in a rolling basis, especially the ones that support the social equity agenda. So I was just on here tonight just to get some clarification on the process, but also to encourage the task force to do review the application that you already have from us, because it was received by the township. I'm not sure when this decision was made. Our company, you can find a lot about us on our Instagram page at purenaturalvibes.com. My husband's a veteran. He's also an officer. I mean, it's been our journey for the past couple of years. So I do urge the council to do take a look at our application. I think you'd be pleasantly surprised. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Ms. Gibbs, for coming back. Thank you.
I'm sorry, everybody. I did have the timer on her. I just didn't share screen. Thank you.
That's better.
Next up, we have Carla. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, hi, my name is Carla Schultz. I reside at 20 Dockery Drive here in West Orange. And can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I want to propose that the council consider a resolution or consider a motion against the war in Ukraine, but not just against the war, against US support of the war. About 10 months ago in August 21, a US Conference of Mayors that represents towns over 30,000 saw this tension escalating, and passed a resolution against the excessive military spending and the nuclear tension. And here we are in 2022, and billions of dollars are going to armament, weaponry. We're paying for it. And I would like the council to consider or discuss a resolution, because these tax dollars could be moved even to support local needs, whether it's economic recovery, COVID, mental health, etc. So the way I see it is that this excessive military spending, billions of dollars, we're contributing for an indefinite period of time. We're paying for it, and it's contributing to suffering that is going to be felt around the world, whether through food crisis and loss of human life through this militarism. And that's all I have to say.
Carla, thank you very much for your comments.
Next, we have Joe Kukoviak. Please state your name and address for the record. Mr. Kukoviak?
Joe Kukoviak, Grandview Avenue. I'm glad to see that Councilwoman Matute Brown appears to be much improved from her illness that was on display at the last council meeting. So best wishes to her. I want to follow up on my public comment at the last council meeting, which appeared to feature by far the shortest council response to public comment since the current council members began meeting at the start of last year. In my comments, I detailed 2 apparent violations of the State Open Public Meeting Act, and the council members involved appeared to confirm the violations and their individual roles in them. Not only would such violations break the state statute, they also would appear to violate the terms of a settlement the township reached several years ago with the local chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union. I asked Council President McCartney, who participated in the apparent violation in her position as the council representative on the planning board, who gave the board legal advice on compliance, since the agenda made clear someone was aware of the law. So I asked the residents be told and ask again to know who gave the planning board legal advice on this issue. I asked the council to investigate these apparent violations and also look into whether the law was being broken by other township entities. I also asked that you report back to residents on the results of your investigation. Having heard no response to my request at the last council meeting, I renew my request and ask that you respond individually and as a governing body. I also asked Mr. Trank, who's the town attorney, to tell residents what he thinks about the situation, particularly the possibility that the township violated the terms of a legal settlement. Also, in the last public comment, I asked the council to begin informing residents when the township is involved in litigation. Pointed out lawsuits were public record and no danger to the township's legal position to so inform residents. Mr. Trink appeared to me to be amenable to this. My memory serves me, he told the council he would do what it wanted. So I asked, where does this request stand? And I asked to hear from each council member individually. And you could also start by informing residents if the mayor's vaccination policy, which has resulted in lost jobs and lost wages for township employees, uniformed and non-uniform, where that stands and what legal matters have arisen because of it and their status. Lastly, I wanted to follow up on Mr. Gross's contract. The council appeared to pay him under a contract for more than $250,000 this year, but it's not clear to me. So I wanted to ask some questions. It appeared to provide him at least $253,000 this year. That was after last year granting him a raise of 25%, or nearly $46,000 to more than $225,000. When the council came back from its executive session sometime around midnight at the last council meeting, it quickly went through the changes that were made to the contract and voted to approve the contract. I didn't clearly understand the vote, so I asked that the clerk tell residents how each council member voted. Also, please tell residents exactly how much council approved as his salary this year. And please tell residents how much more you agreed to pay him other than the salary for other parts of the contract that carried no monetary value. The contract provides for deferred compensation. There's no number specified, but plenty of legal jargon. I'll just quote partially. In an amount equal to the IRS maximum special 457B catch-up deferral, in an amount equal to 2 times the IRS maximum elected deferral for the life of this contract. What is the dollar amount of this over the life of the contract, and why wasn't it specified in the contract? And given the opposition expressed in public comment at the last council meeting to this contract and the hasty non-agenda executive session, I hope you can all tell exactly, rounded to the nearest dollar, how much you are compensating Mr. Gross this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Kevin Malanga. Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Kevin Malanga, 57 Ridge Road. Council President, members of the council, good evening. Because my public comment and the questions that I posed at the last council meeting were not addressed, I would like to ask them again. A West Orange resident who lives next to the Colonial Woods housing development contacted the environmental group Our Green West Orange to report that since the construction of the newest phase of Colonial Woods Drive, the property of that resident and neighboring properties were being flooded by rainwater. In January, I submitted an Open Public Records Act request of the township, and I asked for the performance bond for the Colonial Woods project, all correspondence pertaining to the performance bond, and the tree removal and tree planting plan. After several extensions of time, I was provided with the tree planting plan and was informed by the township clerk that the clerk's office had no further information to provide on this matter. It was suggested by the clerk that I ask John Gross and the engineering and purchasing departments for information. There is a development agreement between the township and the developer of Colonial Woods that includes a performance bond. That agreement was amended, and the amendment changed when the performance bond was required to be put in place. I therefore find it unusual that there has been an amendment to the development agreement specifically pertaining to the performance bond, and yet the township has no correspondence dealing with the performance bond at Colonial Woods. As I stated at the last council meeting, it appears that every single tree at the project site was cut down to build the houses there. Perhaps the street should be renamed Colonial No Woods. As I also stated at the last meeting, none of the street trees that were to be planted in accordance with the tree planting plan have in fact been planted. It also appears that the right-of-way along the curb line where the trees would be planted is too narrow to accommodate the oak trees that are proposed to be planted. My questions are, is there a performance bond with Colonial Woods? If there is no performance bond, why not? If there is a performance bond, why was the bond not provided to me pursuant to my Okra request? Why was every tree on the site cut down in contravention of the township's tree protection ordinance, which requires a developer to preserve trees to the greatest extent possible? And why have no street trees been planted since most of the houses at Colonial Woods Drive are now completed and occupied? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malega.
Next up, we have Michaela Bennett. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Michaela Bennett, Old Indian Road. The first issue I'd like to address with the council, I would like to know why the council went into executive session on one issue at the last council meeting and then negotiated another issue. Doesn't the Open Public Meetings Act require that you advise the public why an executive session was necessary? Not just one reason, but all of the reasons you intend on going into executive session for. Aren't you supposed to inform the public whether or not business will be conducted after you conclude your executive session? Didn't you say on a different matter that night that a material change to a resolution dictated it was prudent to reintroduce that resolution rather than present it on second and final reading? How then do you just go into an executive session without voting or notices or Open Public Meeting Act requirements, then come out from it with a materially changed contract for Mr. Gross, have an attorney verbally read those changes into the record, and then vote on it? That is not only a blatant disregard for the process, it's also a blatant disregard for the public, especially since Mr. Gross's primary obligation to us is a responsible budget, and we do not have one yet. Dover has their budget, but we're out of compliance and subject to state fines, and there's zero sense of urgency. Next issue. Can a council member take money from B&E straw donors, approximately $5,000 worth of money, and then 2 weeks later, vote in favor of the Executive Drive project and B&E doing it? Council President McCartney taking mayoral campaign donations from Larry Pantier's son-in-law, Alan Pine's daughter, and I forget Mr. Schwartz's first name, but his daughter as well, on February 9th, 2021, and then voting in favor of B&E redeveloping Executive Drive a couple weeks later, sounds like a conflict of interest to me. But what's a worse blatant disregard for the next issue? The recent Supreme Court decisions that called the practice of using a council as a redevelopment authority to circumvent a public bidding process absolutely unlawful. The practice that you've permitted at Executive Drive with B&E, the library with the Alpert Group, and the Downtown Edison Plan with the MBS Group has just been struck down in Bergen and Union counties with the strongest statement that public bidding must not be circumvented. Don't you want to know if your actions were lawful before you continue? Lastly, there is a direct causal line between the outrageous taxes we pay in this township and the township developer deals that have stripped this township of commercial ratables. In each instance, the deals struck allowed a very rich developer to receive deep discounts on taxes, and each time our taxes increased to offset the deficit. Imagine if Crystal Lake, Vizcaya, the Organon Edison deal, and Executive Drive were all paying market rate for taxes. That also goes for Mayfair Farms and Rock Spring too. I ask that you, one, rescind the gross contract and follow a proper process. Two, investigate the contributions to McCartney from B&E relatives. Three, stop all development pursuant to a review of these recent cases and their rulings. And four, stop no bid contracting, particularly when it creates a net negative tax liability that town taxpayers shoulder while developers and administration members profit. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Moderator?
Sorry, I
Any-
was coughing, so I didn't want to cough on
Sorry.
tape. Any other members of the public wish to speak before we go to Anthony Puglisi? Yes, we have Ron Charles.
Good evening, Madam Moderator. Thank you. So I have three items. Number one, I attended the open.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Mr. Charles, can you just state your
Yes.
name and address for the record?
Ron Charles, Colonial Woods Drive, West Orange. I attended the open library meeting about 3 weeks ago, where some of the plans of the new library were shown. The library board talked about the jitney service going to the new library, and they mentioned that in the existing library, some form of library service or a smaller library was in the plans. However, at the last council meeting, there was some, I don't know, some maybe mixed information because they said that there's no money in the budget for the to have the library service in the existing building. Some said there were. So I was wondering if we could have some clarification on what is the plan for the existing building and or library service, if there is going to have some form of library service once the new building is complete. The second item is when could we look forward to having the meetings back in person, the council meetings? Is that any time soon or on the agenda to move back in person? And the third item I have is sort of a solution, which I didn't even know Mr. Malango was going to bring up about the trees, but I received a notification from the governor's office this week that the governor is releasing or setting aside $15 million in grants to the Department of Environmental Protection. The grants are specifically for blue and green carbon grants. They're eligible for state, county, local governments, Board of Eds, and local nonprofits. It's a great opportunity here for possibly a shared service, or even if the municipality wanted to go out on its own. The grants range anywhere between 250,000 up to a max of 5 million. And the grants are, there's several reasons, but the two that I can earmark for West Orange is that it is established and maintains trees in suburban and urban areas that reduced or have been reduced over the last few years. And they're restoring forest or forest areas in suburban urban areas that have negative impact on vegetation. So I thought that those are possibly two areas that the township could partner either with the county, with the Board of Ed on, or even go out as alone, or maybe even with some local nonprofits to address some of the problem of the trees in West Orange. And those are my three comments.
Thank you, Mr. Charles.
Next up, we have Todd Dubovy. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, hi. Todd Dubovy, Burnett Terrace. Couple questions. First relates to the budget. I'd love to know how come our budget is delayed, so delayed. and tying that to the ratification of Mr. Gross's contract, that was renewed prior to us having a budget. And wondering, apparently Dover's budget has been approved yet, and he's part-time for them, yet as full-time CFO for West Orange's budget is still outstanding. And in addition, apparently there are fines, daily fines for the outstanding budget, and wondering how you plan to explain that and how you plan to pay for those fines. So that's my question related to the budget. In addition, I'd love to get a status report on phase 2 of the downtown redevelopment. Be interested to know where the negotiation of the development agreement is. And frankly, that I agree with Michaela Bennett's comments that, that was a no bid situation, and for a major project that I think needs to be relooked at. One of the questions I had raised that was never answered relating to the pursuing MBS was whether any kind of a market survey was done of sound studios in the tri-state area and the demand for them. There are sound stages being developed all over the tri-state area, some of them massive, and it'd be curious to know how a smaller sound stage like this one would compete with larger, massive sound stages elsewhere in the area. So that's my question relating to phase 2. I also would love an explanation, not an explanation, but an update on Rock Spring as well. The rumors go around. I'd love to know if there's any truth to the rumors, but is the mayor planning on selling Rock Spring and allowing the development of it? I see Ms. Castellino saying no. I hope you're right about that, because that's totally the opposite of what he pitched it to the taxpayers of the township when he sold the idea of us buying it in the first place. And so that's that issue. And then the only other point I'd like to make, kind of tying into Mr. Charles, is I think it's about time now, given the status or where COVID is, that if we were going to have a budget meeting in person, and we're having Zoom meetings for everything else, at this point, we probably can and should have all of these meetings both in person and via Zoom. The purpose of such an approach would be to encourage the most participation by taxpayers in town. So that's my thoughts on that. And that's all I've got. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public wish to speak before we go to Anthony Puglisi? Okay. Anthony, please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Anthony Puglisi, representing County Executive Joe DiVincenzo. Just wanted to bring you up to date on some changes that are going on at the vaccination sites. First of all, we are relocating the main vaccination center to the Sears building in Livingston. That's effective this week. And then we actually expanded the hours there. It's going to be Thursdays and Fridays from 2 to 7 and Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then we also expanded our mobile outreach initiatives. So Tuesdays from 3 to 7 will be in front of the Hall of Records in Newark. Wednesdays from 3 to 7 will be in front of Orange City Hall. Thursdays from 3 to 7 will be in front of Irvington Town Hall. Excuse me. And Fridays from 3 to 7 will be at East Orange City Hall. Appointments are not needed, but if someone wants to make an appointment, they can still do that at essexcovid.org or call 973-877-8456. On Saturday, May 21st, we have our Computer and Electronics Recycling Day in Cedar Grove. Then we're back in that same location on Bradford Avenue in Cedar Grove on June 1st for a paper shredding and tire recycling day. That's all I have. If you have any questions, I'll be here to answer them. Thank you for the time this evening.
Thank you, Anthony. Start with really a thank you to Anthony. Thank you. Thank you for keeping the Livingston Center open. I understand Kmart Plaza will be closed. And just really thank you for the outstanding work the county has done for Essex County, well, residents in Essex County. I'll work backwards here on my notes. Mr. DeBove was asking about Rock Spring. Yes, initially the mayor did talk about maybe cordoning off 10 or 15 acres because of the sale of the property going from private to public, that we did have to recoup the taxes that were lost there. It was $588,000. We had one proposal that no one really agreed with, and we have not seen anything since then. So you asked about the status. That's all I know right now. Nothing has come before me or the council that I know of. I wanted to answer that question about the budget. It was my decision to cancel the last night, May 9th budget hearing. As you know, we were made aware of COVID circumstances, and I think it's fair and important. My council colleagues did want to meet in person. That was the intent until we found out about the circumstances. So I canceled that. And in pending matters on tonight's agenda, I was hoping that we could get our calendars out and look at a date at the end of May or the beginning of June. You had asked questions about fines. Part of that cancellation included our business administrator writing a letter to local government services explaining the postponement. And I'm sure that has happened. That was part of the process. And just to remind everyone, Dover came up a couple times. Dover is a shared service agreement that we have with Dover. That is not an expense from the township. That is a shared service. And Mr. Charles, thank you for the information. Ron, thank you for the information on the state $15 million worth of grants. I sure hope that our Millennium Strategies grant writers have that in their possession by now. I know I forward them many things and they immediately respond or get it in the right hand so that we can work on it. So thank you for that information. And with the library, the 7,500 square feet that that we're referring to, that was part of the planning process. When that was presented to the planning board, there is supposed to be a health center as part of that project, and 7,500 square feet of community space. We want that to be a library. I know we're talking about a satellite library, but not. I guess my impression was that it would be a library, but not something that we were going to fund and equip with employees. Just like I know the Rena House has their own library for the residents to use. We can get more information on that, but that was my impression of having library space and the health center at the new library. Michaela Bennett, thank you for your comments and your opinions. You did a lot of research. I did not do that. My elect reports are public, and you did the research. I did not do that research at the time. Mr. Malenga, a lot of questions. I'm going to leave those questions for our engineer to find out about the street trees being replaced. I too don't understand about the tree protection ordinance and the way that reads about the footprint of each site not to clear cut, and the performance bond, if that had been amendment. I do not have that information. And the same thing with Mr. Krakowiak, also mentioned over. The negotiations are still outstanding. We did have a resolution to go into executive session to discuss the pending negotiations. They are still outstanding. And there was comment, I think it's reflected in the minutes, that during our meeting, there was comments made that were tying the negotiations with the vaccine mandate with Mr. Gross's contract. And I believe that's how that conversation had happened, that we were discussing both at that time because it came up with the resolution on the negotiations. Violations on the Open Public Meeting Act, I would have to get back to you on that. And Joe, we have asked you before with all of the questions that you ask, if you can submit them. I don't have that material in front of me to be able to respond to you. And Carla Schultz, if you would like to send us a copy of the resolution that you are proposing for us to read through. It does seem excessive, but it also seems very important and urgent at the moment. And we're starting with Nordia Gibbs, was at our town meeting, a few months back. Councilwoman Matouk Brown, I really am going to leave that with you. I know that we did just talk about at the start of the meeting, sending 2 applicants to the state. This would be considered a micro business, and maybe you can give us the status on that application. Thank you all. Councilwoman Williams, do you want to go in reverse order this time?
Thank you, Council President. I don't have any direct comments or responses to any of the comments. As always, thank you to the West Orange members who have taken time out of your busy schedules to present us with your questions and your concerns. I think the response that Council President has given at this time covers a response to everything that we can provide. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilwoman, and I appreciate that, considering our last meeting went to 1:30 in the morning. Yeah, if someone has something different or additional information to add, please do. Councilman Rutherford.
Thank you, Council President. I'm going to begin, I think at the beginning. Thank you, Mr. Fagan, for your timely information as always. Ms. Gibbs, thank you also for making your petition known. I'm sure Councilwoman Matouk Brown will be able to shed some light on that. I am happy to review whatever Ms. Schultz has in mind. I don't know that I want to support something like that, but I certainly want to be very careful about meddling into federal affairs. There's nothing we can do to stop the U.S. support. None of us have a vote, or our vote does not matter in that regard. Mr. Krakowiak, so he asked several questions with regard to the Open Public Meeting Act. I thought we did address that last week. I could be mistaken. I think the council members that were present admitted that they had made a mistake, and once the mistake was recognized, one of them left the meeting so that it would no longer be a violation. I don't know what else could be done in that regard. It's a Zoom meeting, and so you don't know who's in there, at least my understanding, until they come in. If there's some further comment from either town attorney or the individuals that were present at the meeting, that's fine, but I thought we settled that last week. I certainly don't want to spend time or money investigating it. Mr. Krakowiak said Mr. Trink he appeared to be amenable to informing the public of lawsuits as the township is named in them. I have a different recollection. I thought that our town attorney was not amenable to that. I think I actually asked that question as a follow-up also. And I think the response that I got was that and I don't want to misrepresent our town attorney, but I think it was something to the effect of, those things are public anyway. Why would we want to do that? Or something to that effect. But I'm happy to hear your response, Mr. Trink, to that particular question.
Again, it all depends what the council so chooses. I mean, you said it correctly, Councilman, they're public record. We have people from time to time who slip and fall and assert claims. Those obviously involve individuals. We have people who challenge different actions from time to time. Again, generally, whenever I get any lawsuits or whatnot that other than, I'll call it slip and falls, I try to get them to the town council right away. Obviously, in order to effectuate service under the New Jersey court rules, all of them come initially through the municipal clerk. If it involves potential insurance coverage, she then gives them to Ms. Davenport, who gets them immediately to our insurance broker, who gets them to the joint insurance fund. So it's really just a question of the what the council so chooses. I don't have a preference either way, because as you correctly stated, they're public record. So if you want me to, I don't know whatever the protocol, whatever the majority of the council suggests they're comfortable with. I'm not going to characterize any lawsuits, and we're certainly not going to discuss them in public other than say a lawsuit was filed. I'm more than willing to report that to the municipal clerk. Gets all the initial pleadings anyway, so I can give a one sentence, and if you so choose to read the roll at the beginning of council meeting saying that Mrs. Smith has sued us, whatever, it's all public record. So there's nothing that you or I could say. Certainly, we're not going to say anything that would prejudice our insurance coverage or any positions by the town. So I'm here to serve.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr. Trink.
Mr. Trink. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that, what, if anything, differently we should do there. It's subject to some council conversation before we move any further. With regard to Mr. Gross's contract, I don't think any of that is hidden. And while it may have been a tough vote for some, it was overwhelmingly passed. And so that information, I'm sure, is available to the public. Mr. Gross, if you'd like to share it at this time, or whoever would, please do. And if it's not appropriate to share now, and then I'll speak to how we got to that point, because I'm the one that actually connected those two issues in the executive session. Mr. Gross, do you want to share that information, or does anyone want to?
Well, I think I'll speak for myself. If anyone, any details, because there's a lot of details, anybody wants it, they certainly have the right to ask for that information. And that, they can do an Oprah request and get all that information.
All right. The way we got to that is we were discussing the lawsuits regarding the vaccine mandate. And I said in the public session, and I reiterated it in executive session, that I felt I had a difficult time dealing with Mr. Gross's contract when we still had people out on unpaid leave. So that's how the conversation moved to Mr. Gross's contract in executive session. I was not comfortable addressing one of those issues without addressing the other first. And so that's, since the executive session was focused on the lawsuits, that's how we got to that conversation. At least that's my recollection. If someone wants to correct me, that's fine. Mr. Malanga, is there a performance bond for Colonial Woods? Can someone address that, Mr. Trink? Can you answer that question?
I cannot. Ms. Gross may know, or Mr. Laporte would know, but I do not know as I sit here tonight. So
Yeah, I would defer to Mr. Lepore as to that project and certainly can provide any backup once he opines on it. I don't have anything here tonight on it.
I'm here if I'm not muted.
We hear
We
you.
can hear you.
Okay. There's a performance bond that covers not just tree planting, it covers the remainder of for paving, covers sidewalk that's yet to be installed, and it also covers survey monuments. So it's not just trees. I will get that information by the end of the week for the council and Mr. Malanga. Mr. Malanga did say, and I know he mentioned this 2 weeks ago, that somebody had a drainage issue. That property that's being developed is next to Route 280, and it's also next to the power lines. Most of that site drains towards Route 280, so I'm not sure who the particular person may have been with some drainage problems. I do know I was up there a few months ago over on Hunterdon Road and Sussex Avenue about drainage issues. So if somebody wants to let me know the specifics of the drainage, I'd like to look at that also.
Thank you, Mr. Lepore.
Thank you, Mr. Gross, Mr. Lepore. Michaela Bennett, I think I answered your question about the executive session. I think, while she may not pose the question in a way that is particularly palatable to the council, I think she poses a very good question with regard to the B&E donors and the votes on the issue. And I'm curious, and I think I know the answer to this question, but I don't know that there's anything in any law that would require us to not vote on an issue where a donor made a donation to that candidate. I don't think there's something that forces us to recuse ourselves. I think the law requires us to disclose it. Do I understand that correctly?
again, I don't think there's, again, campaign contributions are reportable if they're over $300. EWEC reports are filed. We have a municipal ordinance that deals with the reporting if a contract is provided to a specific vendor, but there is no exclusion in terms of your right to vote. That is not a conflict that under the law or under any other ethics rule that provides that because someone contributed to your campaign, you're not permitted to vote on a project that they or a family member or someone else may or may not have. And I don't know any of the underlying facts as have been related. There's no evidence at all before this council, but regardless, even if any of it is accurate, it does not constitute a conflict. And you've each, by the way, just so we're clear, every one of you serving on the council have gone to ethics training. That's required under New Jersey law. And so you've been given the ethics law under New Jersey, and none of it, from what I'm aware of, requires you to excuse yourself from a vote unless it is going to directly provide some pecuniary benefit to you or an organization that you are either a board member or an owner of. That's where the line is.
Right. And I think, so I understand that, but I do think the question is meant to get to a public perception of fairness with regard to these projects. And so while the question may not have been properly worded and while the law may permit it, I do think it's important that if we are involved in voting on a project, certainly something of the scale of Executive Drive, that we would disclose to the public if we have any relationships, including as a donor to our campaign. So I would do that if I knew. Council President said she did not know. I'm willing to accept her answer at face value. But I do think that is something each of us should commit to, is letting the public know if we have received any support in any campaign from someone related to or the individuals involved in a development like Executive Drive. And I think the public deserves that. So, I don't know how you guys feel, and I'm not even asking you, I'm just saying how I feel. Mr. Charles, thank you so much for your question regarding the library. There was some conversation between myself and Mr. Trink regarding that 7,500 square feet. Mr. Trink and I have had both public and private conversation about that space. And I continue to say, I do not believe it is going to be a library there. And I don't think we should present it as such. Now, if it's community space, that's fine. But it should not be pitched as a library or a satellite library in order to somehow make the new library more palatable. We do recognize that there is a community in the Main Street corridor that will have difficulty getting to Executive Drive, and we should be sensitive to what those needs are. And that was the context in which it was brought up, and I will continue to advocate for that. And I think that's the right thing to do. Also want to thank you, Mr. Charles, for mentioning the grants. We will certainly look further into them. And I share your concern about going back to in-person meetings. I was very disappointed that our budget hearing was canceled. Like many other council members, I have a very full calendar and had to move things around to accommodate the new date of May 9th. And then to have it canceled was certainly a disappointment. I think it's important that we sit down at a table together and do this work. And if one of us can't make it for any reason, join virtually if you can. And if you can't, then the four of us will work it out. There have been council meetings in the past where members have been absent. This would not have been the first time. And we certainly do need a budget. It is critical, as some have said in public comment, that we get it. And so, Mr. Gross is taking the brunt of that heat, but it doesn't all fall in his lap. We could have had the meeting yesterday. And I think we should have had the meeting yesterday. And I voiced my opinion about that, especially since I had to move things in order to accommodate the meeting yesterday. So I share your frustration with not being in person. I am vaccinated. I am boosted twice. I want to give credit to the Hispanic Heritage Organization. They had an event a few weeks ago where they had a COVID vaccine offering at their regular Friday night meeting. I took advantage of it so that I could go back in person. And while I'm talking about this, I do want to say, I certainly do support the vaccines, but we can't force people to do it. But if we're going to be able to get back into in-person meetings, some of us have to be willing to do it. I am. So, I don't know when we're going to get back into person, but or whenever we will. I've never been in the council chambers as a council member for a formal meeting, and certainly would like to, especially since the mask mandates have been lifted pretty much everywhere. Most people have either gotten sick or gotten the vaccine. And so hopefully the strain is certainly less severe now. So considering all of that data, I would encourage us to immediately get back into in-person meetings. With regard to Mr. Puglisi, thank you as always for your timely comments. And I think that does it for me, Council President. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Matthew Brown.
Thank you, Council President. I will try not to repeat the things that have already been discussed. Thank you to the Asian American Pacific Islander for coming on and joining us and raising awareness. They've had gatherings at Rock Spring before, and we have quite a nice turnout of the Asian community. Would like to see that continue to happen. To Ms. Gibbs, I will say that I briefly looked at the emails that were received. Yours was received after our last meeting. Yours was received on April 14th. We had our meeting on April 12th, and the decision was made at that time. I will look closer into your submission of your payment and discuss that with our business office and reach out to you as well. Carla, if you can, I'll follow what Council President mentioned. If you can send over some information, that would be good. At least we can review it with respect to the spending. I just want to see where else I need to respond. Mr. Krikoviak, I did already comment and respond to your question with respect to the violation of the Open Public Meetings Act. For those who are here and were not on last time, I did state that I was invited as a panelist to join the Economic Development Commission to give them information on the cannabis task force and all of the updates. Councilwoman Williams was also there because she is the council liaison and is supposed to be there. Councilwoman McCartney joined the conversation. I immediately interrupted and took myself out of that meeting to avoid any perception of any violation. It is unfortunate, but that's just how it played out. I don't seem to think that there is a need for an investigation because that is time consuming, and I've already expressed what has happened. Councilwoman Williams last time also shared that the video recording is on the Economic Development Commission's website. So if you'd like to review it for yourself, please do so. It is listed there. You were talking about Mr. Gross's contract. I will say to that I did vote no. We did not have any fiscal impact information as to what the cost was going to be. I didn't want to table it to go into executive session. That was the majority of the council vote. There was a vote to go into executive session, but I do not recall, when I look back, as I said I would, recall that there was a resolution to specifically discuss this in executive session, but there was a vote to go into executive session. So I couldn't tell you what the compensation was. I just cannot and refuse to make any votes that significantly impact our budget without understanding how it does. So I can't answer your question, Mr. Krikoviak. Mr. Malanga, with respect to the performance bond, thank you for bringing that up. I am not familiar with the performance bond, but we'll follow up on email with Mr. Lepore with respect to that and as to why it wasn't available. As I understand, you sent an OPRA request, why it wasn't available at the time your OPRA request was sent. Last thing I want to do is make it seem like, that there's anyone is trying to withhold anything from you. So that does concern me. I will inquire further as to that. But I also thank Mr. Lepore for letting us know that the performance bonds were for pavers, sidewalks, trees, and survey monuments, not just for the planting of trees, but certainly we'll continue to look further into that. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else that I wrote down that hasn't been answered. Ms. Bennett, I just spoke to the executive session and how that happened. I was not supportive of going into executive session to discuss this topic, Mr. Gross's contract. However, the council majority did vote to go into executive session. And once again, while I recall there being a vote to go into executive session, there wasn't a vote to table that matter and go and discuss it in executive session. With respect to the donations and campaigns and council members, as Mr. Trank appropriately stated, we are all required to take Ethics Commission trainings, of which I do every year, although this is my 4th year as an elected official. I just think it's important for us to be kept updated with and reminded. I would have recused myself, as I do in matters that I think may even seem to have any conflict, but that is every individual council member's discretion because of the appearance that it does give. The recent Supreme Court decision with respect to circumventing the bidding laws, it is a discussion that I think that council members with legal should have with respect to the decision that has come forth after the construction has already been started. And I did read the articles that you provided in your emails with respect to that. It is a discussion that I would like the council to have. The direct causal relationship to taxes and development, and your request to rescind Mr. Gross's contract. While I voted no, I was not in favor. I don't believe that because there was the support of the majority of the council members that would happen. Investigate the contributions. It is not something that I think that we are going to expend time or monies on, simply because there is no law that requires a council member who receives funding for their campaigns to recuse themselves, because it is, we do have the pay-to-play laws, and while I think that they should be stronger, in my first year on the council, I did provide council president at the time with draft copies of the what I drafted and thought were more enforceable pay-to-play, just to be able to build trust that obviously is dead on arrival. I do think that we should discuss that as a council, just to be able to develop stronger trust with the public. It doesn't sit right with me to be able to take a donor's funds from my campaign and then vote on a contract favorably. That's not to say that there's anything disingenuous with that. It's just the appearance, and to me, the appearance is enough. Mr. Charles, you spoke on Colonial Woods Drive. That was already responded to. With respect to the new library space, I don't think it's disingenuous to say that's going to be a new library space. My recollection and my thought process is different than council president. She said she didn't think that we were going to be required to hire additional personnel or to maintain that that space that is being given to the municipality for the municipality to determine the use. I, for one, as a sitting council member, am extremely supportive of a satellite library, simply because we have seniors that benefited from the computers in the library. Our mountaineers at the high school do provide computer tech learning opportunities for them at the library. So I do envision, because it is our property, that we would have to maintain it, and that obviously requires a discussion of the budget. And while during last year's budget hearing, it wasn't something that this council was prepared to do, it certainly is something, as we're approaching that decision and approaching the budget, that we should discuss. It's deeded to us, so it's our responsibility. I will follow up with or just piggyback off of something Councilwoman Castellino mentioned the last time with respect to inaccessibility and those who are most in need, who access the library. Director Kubi did do a survey and found that most of the people who are accessing the library aren't walking to the library, as it's being repeated. I absolutely believe that it it will be a wonderful move for us to have an incredible updated library in the center of town that does allow for jitneys services in and around town for that purpose. Again, as the fiduciaries and the governing body, that's going to be up to us to decide how and where in the budget we can fit that expense. But I've no doubt that that's going to be, well, not the jitney, but the satellite service of the library is going to be an additional expense if that's exactly what we want to maintain there. I just don't see it any other way, particularly since it's deeded to us. I did see that grant that you referenced, Mr. Charles, and certainly saw because Millennium did forward that to us as well. So I know that they're also looking into it. But thank you. I think that the shared services, particularly since you as a former board member of our school district understand well the complications of a school budget, shared services would really help us, manage our expenses. Okay, Mr. DeVoe, I think that you touched upon, and so did you, Mr. Charles, with respect to the in-person meetings. I do regret that that the budget hearing was not had on Monday. My request, and just so everyone understands, the rules governing council allow council president to oversee the meetings. And when the May 9th date was scheduled, it was done so in advance of any polling from the council members. As some of you who were on the last time recall, or the time before that, when we scheduled the budget hearing, we did so in public. We looked at all of our calendars, we selected a date, which was unfortunately had to be canceled because I had COVID. And being someone who is vaccinated, who is boosted, who was stuck out of the country, who had nothing but a cell phone to review a budget matter, unfortunately, it was either going to be virtual, which none of my council colleagues wanted to do. They wanted in person. We could have held it virtually as we have done in the last 3 years. I think that it is really unfair to say that it couldn't have happened. It could have happened virtually just as we've done it before. I was not able to leave Mexico because of my quarantine until late Saturday evening, caught a flight that had me in on Sunday midnight. And I just tested negative on Saturday, this past Saturday. So I do think that we could have benefited from a virtual budget for the sake of time and timeliness. However, I did ask council president if the council was polled, and if so, why hadn't I? But the fact of the matter is the council was not polled and the date was chosen. Council president has to have a consensus from the council to hold any special meeting, budget hearing, council, whatever, workshop. And that was not what happened. So the meeting had to be either rescheduled for a virtual hearing, because that was the option, or given additional hearing dates. I gave the option of being available on May 9th virtually because I was not yet cleared when that poll came out. And I still do have symptoms. I don't want to sit there and cough in front of you all. And so while I think that we should be in person, this is certainly becoming more and more a case where we're seeing increase in COVID positives. And despite the fact that this round of COVID, if you will, this strain of COVID is not as strong as those that are, previously, unfortunately, have taken lives from our neighbors, friends, and family, it still is a very challenging and difficult position to be in when you're autoimmunocompromised. It's not just the fact that I miss here, but unfortunately I miss work, and it's not something that I wanted to do. We had the virtual option. We could have chosen to go that route, but the council majority did not. So while I do think it's important, I certainly would not, particularly since precedent on this council has given deference to people being on vacation. I remember my first council hearing. Our former council colleague was in Ireland on vacation. I was out of the country, unable to travel, quarantined, and sick. So it wasn't that I didn't plan accordingly. I certainly didn't plan to have COVID. I went for my daughter's wedding, and the day after was quarantined literally under lock and key, because that's how they do it in Mexico. So unfortunately, had the council majority wanted to have the budget hearing in the timely fashion, we could have done it virtually, but it was your choice to not have it virtually. I did ask council president and Madam Clerk to provide me with everyone's responses, because to be honest, I was very surprised that everyone was insisting, as council president said, the majority wanted to be in person, despite the COVID conditions. So that, and then add to that the fact that Councilwoman Castellino is going to be away. That extends another at the National Downtown Main Street conference, that extends it even more. But I would never say to any of my elected colleagues, you're just not there. I think that we should be compassionate enough to understand circumstances and make those accommodations. Just like no one said anything when council president made the meeting virtual after we all agreed it would be in person after Easter, because she understood that there was rising numbers in COVID, people were getting together, families are getting together, and we certainly did not want to cause a public safety concern. And that's understandable. And I 100% agree with that. But in this case, the fact that I was sick, I just got my letter of clearance at 5:38 this evening. It's unfortunate that Councilman Rutherford, you feel that, council members who can't make themselves available just aren't there. That's not how I take my position to serve, just as was evident the last time when I had COVID and couldn't breathe and had labored breathing. I was still on because it is my duty and my responsibility. And had the council decided as a majority to have it virtually, we would have had a little late of a budget presentation, but it would have certainly been more timely than what it is now. So Mr. Dubovny, I hope that answers your question as to why it was delayed. I don't know when the next date is. Don't have any information on, there is no phase 2 redevelopment first. I heard you say phase 2 redevelopment. There is no phase 2 redevelopment, but I have not heard any updates from the administration with respect to the next steps in the downtown redevelopment. And following suit with council president with respect to Rock Spring, I still have not heard anything. And I was actually quite taken aback when you mentioned that there was a rumor that the mayor was planning on selling Rock Spring. Again, as the governing body and the fiduciaries, the mayor just can't unilaterally decide to sell. So I would say that that is a rumor. I don't think that any one of my council colleagues are in a position or desire to see a property like the one we've acquired, like the one that's been successful, be sold to any redevelopers or any developers. I look forward to the time that we can discuss the next steps in Rock Spring redevelopment. And you also mentioned the in-person. So I will end there. Council President, thank you for indulging. That's it for me.
Thank you. Councilwoman Matute Brown, it's interesting your perspective on this, because the email that I sent to all the council colleagues really was to accommodate the situation that you were in. They were asking to be in person, and that was not going to happen because I knew that you would not be available to do that, which is why I asked to postpone the meeting. And I'm hoping that we can all agree upon a date at the end of May or the beginning of June.
I wasn't directing that at you, Council President. I know that that's the reason why the council had to eventually be polled for a new date. I was responding to Councilman Rutherford, where he made the comment that we should all be able to be there, and those who can't be should not be. And my only disappointment is that it wasn't held virtually so that we could have a more timely, although it won't be, it would have been a little late, but it would have been a more timely budget presentation than what we're up against now. That was my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Rutherford. I'm going to let Councilwoman Castellino finish.
No, Councilwoman, Councilwoman Rutherford, you go ahead, make your point, then I'm going to speak, but I just don't want this to go back and forth all night.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Councilwoman Castellino. I know what I just said. I just said it a minute ago, and I think your characterization, Councilwoman Brown, is wrong. I didn't say it's okay for folks not to be there, but if we make exceptions and you still can't be there. So we were supposed to meet on the 3rd. You had COVID. We agreed, and I was polled. I can't speak for any other council person. I was asked if I would be willing to move the date from the 3rd to the 9th, and I said yes. And when she asked me, I said, I have something to do that night, so put it in pencil. If you don't hear back from me, then you can keep that date, because that will mean that I will have moved what my obligation was. So I was polled for the 9th, and I gave my response, which was I would like to do it in person. And if Ms. Councilwoman Brown can't join us in person, then she should be able to join virtually. There's nothing wrong with that. We do hybrid things all the time. Someone in public comment tonight mentioned that even when we do return to in-person council meetings, we should have a hybrid format, because we do get greater attendance virtually than in person. So there's nothing wrong with that. But after being asked to move it a week, almost a full week back, and then seeing that vitriol in the email that you sent, and the response being it's either going to be all virtual or not at all, which was, if that's a mischaracterization of your position, I'm happy to hear it. I said we should have it virtual for you and in person for us, so that all of us could be there. Now, if that still was not acceptable to you, that is completely your prerogative, but the show must go on, right? And then what really bothers me is that in spite of this COVID challenge that you had, and that being the reason why we couldn't meet on the 9th, it's my understanding that you were, there are pictures of you or video of you in restaurants over the weekend with no mask on. So if you can go to a restaurant, you can certainly go to a budget meeting. And if the excuse is that you weren't prepared because you had a phone and you couldn't do it, there's plenty of ways around that, right? But that's one excuse. Let me finish, please, Councilwoman.
Yes,
let me please, right? Because
and I will respond when he is finished, Council President. Go ahead, Councilman.
So I recall just another last meeting being scolded by you for interrupting you and saying that I wasn't called on, I wasn't recognized. I would appreciate you following your own rules. That really bothered me, because the council members here have other obligations too, and we accommodated your change in schedule only to be told that that accommodation was not good enough, and to be scolded for that, for both the process and the way and our vote to do it that way. I think that's disingenuous. I think that's the wrong way to approach this. I think if we're going to do the people's business, we should make every effort to do that, even if we can't be there in person, right? Especially since the other 4 of us could. Thank you, Council President.
Council President, I am going to respond to that, because he became very personal in talking about seeing me or pictures. Yeah, I tested negative on Saturday. And so on Mother's Day, my children did take me out to brunch. I tested negative on Saturday. I'm sorry, Council President, but that is, if you want to talk about the vitriol in the email, and then just leave people hanging with what your comment is. The vitriol in my email was with the fact that Council President did not, maybe she called you. I did not get a call. I did not get an email. And I asked, was the council polled? The council was not polled. And the council president cannot make a decision unilaterally. So I asked if they were polled, when were they polled? They were not. The council was not. I don't know how you were polled. I also said, I cannot do it virtually if there's no virtual option, because that wasn't discussed. Everyone wanted it in person. And it's not a change of my circumstances. It's COVID. It is a pandemic. I'm sorry that you felt offended that when you jumped in and I asked you to wait your turn twice. And that was the second time that I asked Council President to step in. Council President, I am not going to take any more of your time, but for those who want to inquire about the vitriol of the email, I will look for that and I will post it publicly. I do not feel it was vitriol at all. I called out the behavior and how I felt that I was not given support or consideration during the last council meeting when I asked for support and consideration. Yeah, so if you heard frustration in that email, that's exactly what it was that was directed at Council President.
I'd like to ask for a point of order because this is.
Go ahead. Fine.
Thank you.
I'm
Point
done.
of order. The conversation is no longer germane to our agenda. And I would like for us to get back on track and terminate and just get back on track, please.
Bravo. Thank you.
And I would like to get my response in
Yes,
this
please.
evening.
Councilwoman Castellino.
Okay, so in my responses, first of all, we were not going to have a budget hearing. It was a budget workshop. In the budget workshop, the public does not participate. When we have a budget hearing, Mr. Gross has a full presentation and the public gets to participate. We'll talk about that in pending matters, but I will recommend when we do that in person, it be held at a larger venue, maybe Liberty Middle School, because you can social distance there and we don't have to worry about the COVID issues. I am traveling next week to the downtown conference. So, nationally, I mean, COVID's here. We have to live with it. I, for one, suffered personal losses like many. And so I get upset when we go back and forth on this. Because it's very stressful. But we have to move on. We have to live. We have to do our business. And I, for one, was a proponent of meeting in person because the Zoom meetings, I'm sorry, we need to get back in person and look each other eye to eye and have to work together. And the only way to do that is to get out in person. Council President, we saw each other at the event Thursday. I had no problem. I wanted to meet in person. Our technology is not there yet. Because I don't want to give the public the impression we're going to go back and we're going to Zoom. If we're going to Zoom at a public meeting, I have news for you folks. I'm staying home. I refuse to go back in public and Zoom. It's not necessary. Most towns are back in public. Our school board is back in public. My last liaison meeting, I spoke with the superintendent, the school board members. They had the technology at West Orange High School. They were having folks dial in, email in their questions and showing it live because they have the technology. After meeting two, they weren't even getting anyone emailing them questions. People were coming to the meetings. So I know we always want to be transparent. We want to, provide opportunities for the public, but I think we need to rip off the Band-Aid. We need to go back in person and just move forward with that. And I too had plans last night to see an old friend, and we were being accommodating. I don't like the pot shots at Council President. She's been trying to be, and maybe the miscommunication is there amongst all of us, but she has been trying to be accommodating to all the council members. All of us, she's been accommodating to. So the cheap shots, I know this is an election year, and I hope all of us could not keep debating and move forward with our comments in a more thoughtful way. Let's see here to get back on track. Mr. Malanga, I'm glad Mr. Lepore was on, And also that project isn't done. And I'm not sure if he said it, because I wrote a note here, but usually, you know, those things are addressed at the very end of the project with development. And I know they're not there yet. So whether he stressed that or not, I just wrote down that point. So I just wanted to share it with everyone. You know, Councilman Kukoviac, you know, I appreciate you trying to get 1,000 questions in 5 minutes. You send us an email. And a lot of your questions were answered, maybe not to your satisfaction at the last meeting. But again, too, you know, we don't mind answering questions as far as making accusations of us not following the rules, citing Oprah. Now, we have our counsel. So when we go into executive sessions, we have counsel there. They advise us. So again, a meeting, a commission meeting, a council member jumps on. I mean, that just aggravates me, to tell you the truth, that we're gonna, you know, everybody is trying to do their best to, you know, listen in on other meetings, because even with the Zoom, you do have that opportunity if you want to see what another committee's doing, because you want to be helpful. You want to be productive for the community. I don't think that's a terrible thing that we have too many council members that want to listen in. I don't think they should be scolded for that. So I applaud all 3 of my colleagues that, and Councilwoman Williams that ran the meeting, and my other 2 colleagues that went on to listen in. I commend them for wanting to know what's going on with the other commissions and just to try to help our community. I don't see anything wrong with that. So that bothers me when that gets brought up. Let's see. What else do we have here? Mr. Charles, grant writer, and thanks for bringing that up. And I know you were very successful with grants when we were on the school board together, bringing grants to us. We're lucky here we have a great grant writer. And usually when these things get announced at the level which you're discussing, the information takes like a week or so to trickle down to her. And we have great opportunities where she just sends them out. And if they work, we try to go for them. So thank you for bringing that one to our attention. In regards to, you know, we talked about the library last week. I spoke with Marge Minion, who ran that meeting actually today. And again, you know, Councilman Rutherford is being very thoughtful, worrying about the community. And I appreciate that. And again, that's part of our job. We'll work together to make sure we get jitney services for the residents to get up to the new location. The Friends group is gonna make sure that we raise money if we need computers. Like I mentioned, the book sale, we make a lot of money on the book sale. So please make sure everyone attends it, June 4th, right down the day of the street fair. And we're gonna do everything we can to have services there in that location. So let's not get too caught up in what we're gonna call it, but let's keep having the conversations how we're all gonna work together to make sure that we provide those services for our residents. And Joe Fagan, thanks for bringing up Memorial Day. We look forward to May 30th. And I just want to commend Amy Gallatin, who organized the Israeli flag raising. She's a great community member, and it was so wonderful to see her children participate. And it was a really nice event. And to all our community members, even the ones tonight that were on earlier in the evening, that bring these events to us. We really appreciate their work and celebrating our diversity in the township. And Ms. Gibbs, with your application, you know, I serve on the task force. You know, we did our diligence. Appreciate you sending the information in. It was after the allotted time. I, for one, do not have an appetite to bring more applicants to the council at this time. For various reasons, we put limits on them. And so I'm just going to leave it there for now. You applied after the date. So yeah, I'm just gonna, but I appreciate you wanting to invest in the community. And let's see, in regards to Mr. Gross's contract, and the economics of Mr. Gross's contract, we clearly stated when we came out of that meeting late at the last meeting. And again, when we get to, if you get a chance when the budget is posted, you'll be able to look at it. Mr. Sayers retired last year and he had a high salary. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but that BA line is going to be 0. And so Mr. Gross is serving us in two roles, and he does it quite well. It is not on him that we don't have the budget now. It was on us. And so again, I was fully supportive of that. We're not paying benefits to another person. We only get charged once for the benefits for Mr. Gross. So the economics does make sense. So I was supportive of that for him in regards to the impact on the budget. And with that, who else did I miss? I think I got everybody. Ms. Schultz, thank you for coming on, talking about Ukraine. It is heartbreaking. Every time you put on the news late at night before you go to bed, I just pray every night that it ends for those poor people and the impact on the rest of us in the world. Food shortages we're going to have look forward to looking at, and so many other things. So as far as resolutions, I'm never one for those kind of resolutions. I like to, they're for another entity, but thank you for coming on and sharing that with us. And Rock Spring, I was shaking my head, Mr. DeBovi, because that was we're gonna have rumors this year. It's a big election year for us in the township, and there's going to be rumors floating all over. So I appreciate you bringing that one to us. And Rock Spring is going to be something. Rock Spring is going to be something that we're gonna all have to discuss.
Next year, we got enough in here.
And you're not muted.
Closet over there.
Councilwoman Williams.
You're not muted. That's okay. Zoom, see, this is why we're gonna go back in person.
I'm so sorry. I'm talking to the college freshmen. I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is why we're gonna go back in person. So anyway, yeah, there's gonna be rumors out there, and it's gonna be something that we're gonna have to discuss. We have a resolution tonight for the restaurant portion of Rock Spring, and I look forward to that discussion. And as it was stated earlier in the evening, there were some proposals brought to us the past 2 years, and we denied them. So we're going to be very thoughtful and very cautious of that property. So that's it. Thank you, Council President. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Okay, now's the time to review the consent agenda. Approval of minutes of previous meeting, public meeting, April 26, 2022.
Consent.
Consent.
Report of township officers, none. Reading of petitions and communications and bids, none. Bills. Are there any questions on the bills?
Consent.
Okay, resolutions. Are there any resolutions being
All
pulled this
right.
evening?
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you. I do have 2 questions. I know there's only 4 resolutions here, but I wanted to ask on the Kemper Sports and the RBG hospitality that was just referenced, are there dates for this agreement?
The agreement will run coterminous with our Kemper agreement. So it basically, they are a sublessor, I guess, from Kemper. So it is part of that, but as the state requires, if you're going to have 2 entities with the using the liquor license authorized because it's township property, that we have to approve them. The township has to approve them as well. So it is an agreement that allows them to operate and, under the contract that we have with Kemp.
Thank you. And on resolution 131-22, I do have a question. This is approving a license agreement with Remarkable Foods while they're allowing them to park at 10 Rooney while their facility is being completed. Though I would have approved that, are they also going to be operating in our town or just parking and going out to their own locations?
I'll answer that.
Thank you, Mr. Trump.
So when you say operating in the town, they're allowed to operate in any town. So the short answer is they will have a permanent location here, as we understand it, at Mayfair Farms. Mayfair Farms is completing a number of events they're involved in, and this is just an interim arrangement for parking that basically is from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. And this allows them to serve our town and the neighboring communities.
So part of this was brought to my attention today that one of the trucks that was operating was double parked on Main Street. So can there be something in this agreement that, that was an issue? Councilwoman Castellino raised that when this was first presented to us. Is there something in this agreement that we just can't allow, especially on Main Street and especially on that bend coming down Eagle Rock Avenue? Is there something that we can? Yes, sir.
Council President, if I can, just to bring you up to date on that, the police chief, who couldn't be here tonight, did have a conversation with the principals and advised them to make sure that they understood that was not something that was acceptable. They advised the chief that it was not acceptable to them as well. And that they were going to take steps to make sure that those issues were resolved. They felt that was a driver issue, not a company issue.
I just wanted to note for the record that this resolution should be pulled off consent. And I want to note for the municipal clerk to note in the record that Councilwoman Matute Brown has previously advised us that she's recusing herself on this particular resolution and not participating. So she did appropriately turn off her screen. So
yes,
it should be recorded in the minutes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Train. Councilwoman Castellino.
So should I discuss it now or when we pull it?
Let's pull. Why don't we vote on the consent agenda? That way the Councilwoman Matute Brown can be involved. And then pull this one off, and then we can talk about anything you want on this resolution in particular. Okay. That way we don't blur any lines.
Okay.
Okay, are we ready to vote on the consent agenda?
No, my hand is up.
Oh, so sorry.
Councilwoman Castellino, are you pulling this then?
Yes, I'll pull it. Mr. Frank pulled it.
We're pulling.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Matute, anything else, Councilwoman Castellino?
No, I just want to talk about that resolution.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Matute.
On resolution 128, I just had a couple of questions on 128 and 129. I spoke to Mr. Gross on these earlier, so I don't know if he was able to get some information. But the resolution 128-22, which is exempting the church on 446 Northfield Avenue, block 160, lot 11. I asked for clarification as to whether or not they had actually been granted their permits. I know that there were issues with the zoning board and planning board. Have they had their permits? Are they operating as a church without the permits? I just want to understand what the circumstances are.
Yeah, we spoke about that late this afternoon. I was not able to obtain any up-to-date information as far as that is concerned. This particular resolution is about their status, their exemption status, which is not necessarily directly related to those particular questions. But obviously those questions are relative to that property or to the use of that property.
Yeah, and that's why that was my question, whether or not they were in fact already operating. I know the last time they weren't. What happens if there is a circumstance under which they are not approved by zoning or planning, I don't know which they were before, for use as a church, and does that property then continue to remain exempt?
And again, I don't know the basis by which this particular property is exempt. However, religious institutions who own properties and have uses other than as congregation uses will render them tax exempt. So that, again, I was not able to get through to the assessor's office to determine exactly the basis for this exemption. I'll certainly get that for you tomorrow, but the assessor has determined that, and this is a part of the process to finalize it. So.
Okay, thank you. And then on resolution 129, where we were talking about the canceling of sewer charges, can you please just clarify for my colleagues and for the public the reason that there is a $9,800 refund? Is it a refund? It's a cancellation of sewer charges. We're not charging them $9,800 because their lines are capped, and that's the property on 555 Northfield Avenue. Can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, it's just when it comes to your sewer charges, those are fees for services that you provide. So if a property is not connected to our sewer, the lines are capped and they're not participating in using our sewers, then they're not required to pay for connections that don't exist. However, in order when that property comes back and to be used for residential or otherwise, and they have to be reconnected to the sewer system, those charges will then be reinstated and moving forward, depending on what the uses are at that time. We anticipate that what this is going to be is obviously they're building residential properties there, and each one of those units will come online with a unit cost or unit charge.
So then a certificate of occupancy will trigger the reinstatement of the sewer charges.
Yeah, it's actually the CO is the last step to confirm. It may very well get triggered before that, based on permitting and other issues. But the last place we would catch it is in the issuance of the CO.
Okay, thank you. And then for resolution 130-22, the one that's dealing with the RBG hospitality group over at Rock Spring. I know there's a lot of events starting to happen at Rock Spring. Are they open already? I know that I saw also a sign looking for help for bartenders and employment. Have they opened? Has RBG opened?
I don't believe that they're open to the public and on a being just generally open. They are doing events and special events, so I would expect that they will be shortly.
Okay, and then so my question with respect to this particular resolution, and I tried to go back and to read through the Kemper agreement, obviously because they are through Kemper. But on the exhibit of this particular resolution, there is a clause that I did not find in the agreement, and I could have missed it in the original agreement, whereas it says if they do not comply, they can immediately comply with all of the list of circumstances, and they can immediately determine the contract is immediately terminated. I'm curious as to why that language, because I didn't see it again on the original Kemper agreement, and that is concerning to me. And I'll share with you why. This is obviously a group that has come in through the Economic Development Commission that the mayor has revived or reinstated. The chair of the Economic Development Commission, Mr. John Wayman Henry, I'm sorry if I'm transfixing his last names, sought investors who came in and put their time and their money. And I do understand that there was some lack of communication with respect to what the refunds were going to be, how they were going to be reimbursed, what they were going to be reimbursed for. So my concern is that they have expended monies to open, and they're not open right now to the public. And the clause of that within 6 months concerns me because I'm not sure, A, whether or not they have been reimbursed. I know that every time we have this conversation, it goes back to Kemper. Kemper has to reimburse them. Kemper has to reimburse them. I'm reluctant to support this resolution because until they're paid, I don't want them to be, for lack of a better word, I don't want them to be put out if they've already shown their commitment to the Township of West Orange, and the clause that reads that they will immediately be canceled if they don't follow any one of the listed obligations is concerning to me.
I'll defer to
Thank you.
to Mr. Trank on the terminology within the agreement.
Thank you.
There's been a bunch of discussions that obviously you were involved in, some of them early on, and we've continued them. And it's probably 3 weeks ago, this Thursday, I know Councilwoman Castellino was present, and obviously Mr. Gross and I were present with the mayor, where we met with all the groups. Specifically about what you're talking about. We wanted RBG to open and operate. We wanted to deal with some of, as you correctly state, were miscommunications, which are unacceptable, so that we all know what the expectations are. So we resolved it. In fact, I saw a draft of an agreement where basically consistent with that RBG has their agreement with Kemper, that the issue of reimbursement is closed, and that we move forward. So specifically to your concern, I'm the one who added that provision because of the nightmare, I'll call it, on Rock Spring Road. We wouldn't want to be in a situation where, as you can appreciate, for instance, utilities. Everybody agrees that there is additional utility use when you have a catering and a restaurant and whatnot. And correctly, the parties agreed that cost should be borne by RBG, the operator. So if RBG doesn't make the payments and therefore they're in default with Kemper on what RBG has agreed are reasonable financial, we'll call it rent or sub-rent, then clearly they can't stay there if they have no right to be there. So it's a provision, and RBG's council has seen this agreement. Everyone understands it. Keep in mind, this agreement that's before you tonight is fundamental to what I'll call the working relationship, as Mr. Gross says, because without having an ability of there to basically be an ABC concessionaire's license for the operator of the clubhouse, RBG, and a separate concessionaire license for the halfway house, which services the golfers, then the lines keep getting blurred. And generally, the ABC has to approve this, and the ABC, it requires this document that's before you. And this document is consistent with the resolution that you adopted, I think it's 6 months ago. So
November.
Yeah, so it is the ABC that's dictating these provisions. Mr. Gross and I were on a conference call last Monday night with, we'll call it the ABC council. RBG has council, so obviously there's Kemper, and they requested it, which is why I quickly drafted it and got it for you for tonight, because the more we can keep them synergized, operating as has been one of your goals, and certainly the town's goals, and the more we can kind of keep their operations defined, I think the better, and the less lack of communication. And as you could see, I'm most concerned that nobody can spend money for the town without specifically going to Mr. Gross, and obviously if it involves other expenses, it comes to you. So so that's the goal here. It's just to clarify it. It's not to hurt anyone, and it's like, as you correctly stated, it's because there have been communication issues, and you know, Mr. Gross has offered and will continue to do it. We all get, you get monthly reports. Again, Kemper is very detailed, and we want RBG to follow the same clarity, so that they don't think because somebody says something that it has any ability to be handled any other way than we're doing, but as you are being asked to do tonight, if it's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trank, for the clarity.
Welcome.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Councilwoman Castellino?
Yeah, and thank you, Mr. Trank, for that explanation. I had asked the mayor if I could sit in on that meeting. You know, I was thrown when they weren't open for dinner after the winter, and to listen in on some of their challenges. But at the same time, you know, we have expectations of what our needs that need to be met, and you know, just ironing out those situations and making a better working relationship with them and Kemper. So I fully support the language that Mr. Trank has put in here. And again, I urge my colleagues to, you know, be supportive of the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on the resolutions? Okay.
Council President, just going back to 12822, if I may, I'm sorry, 12922.
The sewer charges?
Yes. So the property has, I would have, when were the lines capped? And I mean, so it seems like this is a large amount. Is that, why wouldn't we stop? Did we continue billing them even after the lines were capped?
Yeah, what happens is we don't know when they're capped. You know, that's a physical thing that happens. So when we find out about it and they request, basically what happens is we continue to bill them and they're required to pay. And so they usually pay. And then they'll come to us and say, hey, you know, we capped our lines as of a certain date, and we require them to show us proof, some type of proof to show when the lines were capped. Once that is done to the town's satisfaction, then we'll put it up for a refund. So these, you know, sometimes, and some, quite frankly, some people don't think about it until later on, especially like something like a fire where there's a tragedy. You know, they don't realize until maybe somebody mentions them, hey, are you still paying for your sewer? And they come down and they ask, like, one of the properties is 2 years, you know, that were refunded because they didn't tell us. You know, so it's not like we don't meter everybody's sewage use. So that's unfortunately that's pretty common.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Madam Clerk?
Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Councilwoman Castellino?
Yes.
Oh, never, I'm sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda is implemented. Resolution 131-22, resolution authorizing execution of license agreement between Remarkable Foods Hospitality LLC and the Township for the use of and access to the parking lot located at 10 Rooney Circle. Mr. Trank.
Yes, please. So if I could just provide the background, again, for the record, Councilwoman Madhu Brown has asked that the minutes reflect her recusal, and she's turned off her screen.
Noted.
So specifically, this is a new business, technologically driven, and we addressed it with Director Franzino when we did certain amendments to our health department ordinance, which will provide that when there is what I'll call a commissary here in town, and it is contemplated that this business will be one of the first, but not the only, because again, this mayor and at the direction of many of the council people, we try to do everything we can to make our town business friendly in all regards. So obviously this platform exists and the town will inspect the trucks on an annual basis. They will be licensed and whatnot. Again, just like pizza delivery people, they can drive through town anytime. They don't need a license. They're not cooking. Ice cream trucks are from time to time inspected. Food trucks are inspected. Again, this is not, as Mr. Franzino said, where you're doing anything other than, again, he explained the technology. It's freeze dried. It's cooked at the commissary. So we will inspect the trucks as once there's a commissary in town. So with that expectation that commissary will be coming to town, And again, this was not known by the administration at the time we presented it, but it's irrelevant. The bottom line is they had entered into a temporary license agreement to park at 769 Northfield. All of you know that has been a longtime medical building on Northfield Avenue. And it happens to be now with the development of Vizcaya in a kind of residential abuts it. Bottom line is we started to receive some complaints from some neighbors because again, between 3 and 7, and I know some of you have used the app, you order on an app at about 4 o'clock and then they, based on whatever restaurant or whatnot, they then dispatch the trucks. And West Orange happens to be the center of Essex County. And obviously, most of us have gotten mailers from this particular company that is very much, you'll see their trucks in the entire corridor, not just West Orange. So when we started to get those complaints, the issue is, you know, what do we do with these trucks? Because once they're on Mayfair Farms, as you know, that's a sprawling piece of property with over 500, 600, 700 parking spaces. So they will not be parked up against a residential neighborhood and idling. And as was pointed out, there's nothing about the idling that violates any law. We looked into that. So that's not the issue. So the bottom line of the story is at that point, in order to resolve this matter so that the neighborhood was fine and it didn't impact another neighborhood, the mayor and I and Mr. Gross had a conversation. And the bottom line is we're not ready yet. And there, other than a COVID testing center that we have on 10 Rooney, the basic view was we'll take the rent, the town, that's what you'll see in it, $3,000 a month. And we have an insurance certificate. And we immediately, I think it was as of last Tuesday night, to get the trucks out of 769, park them on 10 Rooney, which is, as you know, tucked in by 280. And that's exactly what's occurring. And we have no more complaints. We don't have to deal with any particular neighborhood. And again, this is temporary. If for any reason this becomes a problem, we have the right on 10 days notice to terminate it. It has not been a problem at all. We haven't received one more complaint on this issue. Obviously, what's good about 10 Rooney, as you all know, is it's off county roads, it's off state roads, it's off 280. So again, and it's basically from 3 to 7. They're not parked there overnight. They're just parked there basically waiting to get there. And again, I'm only giving, Mr. Gross may have further knowledge and better knowledge, but that is my understanding. And that's why we presented this to the council. We think it makes sense. It takes it out of a neighborhood. It's a temporary solution. And we've received no complaints at all since last Tuesday night when we implemented it, subject to your consideration of this tonight. So I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilwoman Kessler.
Okay, so just for the public, this is the Wonder Trucks that have been, you know, if you have the app or if you heard of them, where they will come, park their truck in front of your residence and cook fresh for 15 to 20 minutes. So, and you know, I made my concerns. I was worried about traffic and whatnot. I think this is a good solution for this resolution to put it there for now. However, I was very disappointed today with them. I mean, you know, they're lucky that the van didn't get hit today on Main Street. You know, cars come flying down Harrison Avenue, making that left on Main Street. They blocked a brick and mortar restaurant, parked there for 15 to 20 minutes. Not fair to that restaurant owner. I was worried about brick and mortar with these vehicles. So I just hope we're going to have a conversation with them. I know the chief was on it today, but again, I mean, this is somebody that ordered, you know, put an order in that lived in that apartment building down on Main Street. So they are going to be all over town, just in not certain neighborhoods. So all the more reason why there needs to be conversations with this establishment moving forward. But as far as the purpose for this resolution, I'll be supportive of because we're getting the rental fee as well. So thank you for that, Mr. Trank. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Gross, for the follow-up too with the business itself, that driver training is needed as well. Thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk?
Is there a motion to approve 131-22?
Yes, so moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Castellino,
Yes.
Councilman Rutherford,
Yes.
Councilwoman Williams,
Yes.
Council President McCartney.
Yes.
Okay. We
Ordinance.
have ordinances on second and final reading, 2684-22, an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 7 Traffic, subsection 7-19 through streets and 7-20 stop intersections of the revised general ordinances of West Orange. Is there a motion to introduce on second and final reading?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilwoman Castellino,
Yes.
Councilwoman Matute Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Rutherford,
Yes.
Councilwoman Williams,
Yes.
Council President McCartney.
Yes.
Now's the time for public hearing.
Any members of the public wish to speak on this ordinance? Please raise your hands. I'm not seeing any yet. Doesn't look like there's any member of the public.
Okay, thank you, Madam Moderator. Madam Clerk, any conversation, any questions from my colleagues?
Okay.
Seeing
This
none?
is, I just wanted to confirm, this is the ordinance where we are putting an additional fee.
No.
No, this is stop intersections.
Just stop intersections. Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Sorry. Is there a motion to approve 2684-22 on second and final reading?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Councilwoman Castellino,
Yes.
Councilwoman Matute Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Rutherford,
Yes.
Councilwoman Williams,
Yes.
Council President McCartney.
Yes.
Okay.
There are no ordinances on first reading, and that brings us to pending matters. And a perfect segue, because our conversation at our last council meeting had a lot to do with parking issues all along the corridor. And I want to thank the administration. I did see today about the permit parking for Bethany. So I was pleased to see that steps have been taken to address the issues. And also, I know the chief is not here, but about enforcement issues. So Mr. Gross, again, a proactive stance. Can you tell us what the plan is?
Well, in terms of enforcement, we've actually been getting more aggressive to get back to pre-COVID enforcement, you know, the last 6 to 8 weeks. We've been writing a lot of tickets and trying to, you know, identify vehicles that don't belong or have been abandoned, and working on that. And we're working methodically based on the staffing that we have. But we expect that, you know, we will continue to move up and down the corridor to get to that. So it is certainly an issue, and we understand that it's an important quality of life issue. And the police department has been extremely cooperative in terms of helping us deal with that in the here and the now. Additionally, we've already started and we'll continue to collect the kind of data we need in order to put together, to identify issues, long-term issues, and identify the plans or create plans based on the actual data that we collect to help deal with those long-term issues. That's not going to help today or tomorrow, but it's certainly going to help us moving into the future. Lastly, you know, we've got, just as an example, the Bethany spaces, and I suspect there may be other spaces in the same circumstance or other locations in the same circumstances. we probably haven't done as good a job as we need to in advertising that those spaces are available. We have 18 spaces there, and we sold 1 permit in 21 and 2 permits in 22 and sorry, 1 permit in 20, 2 permits in 21, and none so far this year. So we're going to take steps to try to get the word out about the parking that we do have and the permits that we do issue to hopefully provide some relief in those areas as we move forward. And lastly, I think, parking is, as the mayor has said, has been a major issue. It's been a major issue in every town. It's because it's such a quality of life issue to people near town. And so we're moving forward. Parking is going to be a major focus. And now that we've left the COVID era, or leaving the COVID era, and we will be looking at those types of quality of life issues moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Gross. And the mayor did address that at our last meeting, saying that due to COVID. So now that we are moving beyond that, again, I thank you for collecting this data to address these issues. But say, just if a site is designated, let's say if it's Bethany, do the permits go out? Is there criteria? Does it go out to people in a 200-foot radius, like a planning or zoning application? How is that determined?
Well, they're open for sale, the permits. And again, they're not, as I said, we probably need to figure out a better way to get the word out that they're available. So it is not, it's not as if they're not, we don't do a mailing, like a 200-foot mailing or anything like that.
Okay.
So we're going to look at how we can do a better job at getting that word out. Because clearly, it's a resource that people can use and should have available to them. So we will look at that and try to certainly having more discussions about parking at our meetings here will help to get the word out. But there's other ways too. So we'll certainly be featuring them more on the website as well as other ways that we can get the word out in social media.
Great, thank you. Councilwoman Castellino.
Thank you, Council President. So going back to that Bethany parking lot, because it's extremely underutilized. So you said the 18 spots, and I know during the week when I asked you the hours on that lot, did you bring that information with you?
Yeah, I mean,
7?
yeah, it's from 7 p.m. until 9 a.m. 6 days a week.
And then Sunday?
Only Sunday is a little bit restricted because you have to be out by, I believe 8 o'clock. But it's posted and the signage, if you go take a look, if you're interested, the hours are posted at the lot itself. So it's pretty well
it's lit too.
identified. Yeah. So if anybody that doesn't know it, they just, all they really need to do, if they don't remember or haven't seen this, or somebody's just referring it, just go to the site itself, and there's lots of signage.
And then Mr. Lepore, I have a question for, because when is that? I believe one of the crosswalks is going in by Dunkin' Donuts, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So I know the area is lit. Well, eventually, what's the time frame on that crosswalk?
We, as you know, I think a couple of meetings ago, authorized the installation of flashing pedestrian crossing signs. So as soon as they come in and are installed, the crosswalk will be painted. Like a lot of other things, there's delays in material deliveries. So I don't have even an approximate date right now.
Okay. And then in talking to some residents, Mr. Gross, I don't know how we're going to do this when you do get some kind of information packet out there, but just hearing from some local residents, there's still people, and I tell people, you got to report it to the zoning officer. If folks are living in bedroom apartments and basement apartments rather, that's against our ordinance. So if if folks have tenants in a basement, this is why we have that ordinance, because of, tight parking restrictions, too many people in one area. And, they need to report that to the zoning officer. I had a talk with her during the week, and she does get calls time to time, and they will go out there, and they have found some basement apartments that shouldn't be there from time to time. So, folks need to report that. So I think, working on that strong communication piece, there's going to be a lot of things we're going to need to do to help all these quality life issues. And just last thing, I see my other colleagues have their hands up. I know with the Downtown Alliance and with Ms. Brill, myself and you with the other lots in the downtown corridor, we're going to be working on trying to, form a parking authority with you. So we look forward to that in the future. So all these steps hopefully will help our residents. Thank you, Council President.
You're welcome. Thank you. Councilwoman Williams?
Thank you, Council President. I just wanted to get an update or a comment or reminder. In addition to the parking, we also talked about the lighting in the downtown corridor. And so I just wanted to ask Mr. Lepore, had we done a walkthrough to identify if all of our lighting is operable?
Usually I will do that in coordination with the police department, which is something they do regularly because they're on duty at night when the lights need to be on. So I will follow up with operations in the police department about that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Rutherford?
Yes, thank you, Council President. Just Mr. Gross, for the benefit of the public that is still here, and for those that will watch this in the future, can you give us the cost of the permit for parking at Bethany and also the process to acquire one of those permits?
Well, the process is you basically go down to the police department, make an inquiry, and if you have another second to talk about something else, I'll get right back with you with the cost. I have it, I just don't have it committed.
No worries. Thank you very much. I'm happy to move on while we wait for Mr. Gross. I'm sure it won't take too
long. Well, while John is looking, we can look at our calendars for budget dates. That would be next on pending matters.
So are we looking at the end of May? Can you give us some parameters on what we should be looking at?
I would ask that you look at maybe Tuesday, the 31st.
I'm good with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I believe I'm fine with that too. I'm checking my other one, just a second.
I'm good. And that's for the workshop, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Yep, I'm good too. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Yes. Councilwoman Williams, that works for you as well?
Yes, as well.
Okay. And 6 o'clock is okay?
Yes.
Great.
Schedule our next town
In
council meeting to
person?
be in person, please.
This would be in person, budget
Thank you.
workshop in person.
What about our next town council meeting?
The week prior to that. Yeah,
In person?
that was the whole idea. Yes, that would be on May 24th
Yes.
in person.
So, Council President, how do we address the comments that we continue to hear from the public that if we're in person to stream? I know where Councilwoman Castellino stands on that, but just curious where the rest of my council colleagues. I know we've spoken about this before in the, and I've only spoken to it from the perspective of Lauren, who used to do our moderator, and she likened not having the same facilities as the library media center to be able to coordinate both Zoom and the way the Board of Ed does. So just so that the public who is here, because some of them have asked, you know, are we going to have a virtual component where they, with the meetings moving forward, where they're streaming? My concern with doing that is, you know, just the additional workload that would come onto the clerk's office if they are required to take comments or questions up until a time certain. I think that's how the Board of Ed did it, like either the Thursday before or the day of by a time certain, to be read into the record. That is, because we are so short-staffed at Town Hall, that is a concern of mine if we were to do that. Or are we considering just streaming and letting people watch and not participate in public? And if we do that, is that legal for us to do?
Will we have the video? Excuse me, Councilwoman. Mr. Gross, I assume we're going to go back to normal with the video, right? Being taped?
A
And it'll be
videographer?
on the next day?
That is an option, obviously, that the council has.
Yeah, I'd be supportive
That was
of
the plan.
having
Mhm.
a virtual
That was the-
component as well as in person. I don't know what the employees, how they feel about it and what the workload would be, but I do think it's important to continue the dialogue with the public. And we've seen that, you know, so many folks join virtually. I think it's important to maintain that.
So can we have a vote then instead of a debate or conversation?
Well,
Can we just
find
vote?
out. Yeah, well, Councilwoman, I just want to check with Mr. Gross.
Capacity.
Administratively, can we do that out of Town Hall? I thought that was an issue. I know that was brought up with the HRC and other people that wanted to have their meetings. And do we have the capacity and ability to do that?
There is, we can do anything. It's just a matter of planning, and to the extent whatever the costs may be, it becomes the more interactive that you become on a in-person meeting, the more complicated it gets, and the less, so I don't know what the right word is, but it's more complicated, and it's certainly some getting used to. We talked about it before. You know, you have to as a participant, you have to focus on both the live audience and the Zoom audience. You know, especially if there's going to be interaction and from the Zoom audience. So again, it depends on exactly what, from a programmatic point of view, you want to do. Certainly, you know, I mean, you have Zoom where you're like we are now. You have the old style, which is recorded and put on up, you know, shortly thereafter that we did before. That's two different methods, two different professionals that do that. If you do a combination of the old style and Zoom, you might be able to do it with just one professional. But again, to the extent you're going to take questions from the public and interaction with the public, it becomes more complicated. You know, we'll do whatever the council wants.
Right, but so during a budget workshop, there isn't an interaction.
No.
Well, yeah, budget workshop is a different animal.
Right.
You know, and
We record those, correct?
we do audio recording.
Yeah.
So can we, so it sounds like in our conversation that there is a desire to have more people available opportunity to attend our meetings. So with that being said, we are clear that there has to be a dual component, which includes Zoom as well as in person. What we have not agreed upon and what seems to be in question is whether or not we will continue to allow interactivity while we are doing the recorded meeting or at the meeting to the audience that is not present in council chambers or whatever the facility or location is where we're hosting our meeting. So can we all agree that anyone who has a question to the council would submit that question to the clerk by 5 p.m. on the day of the meeting? Are we comfortable with that?
I
'Cause
would
if we-
prefer that it be submitted earlier than that.
Can you give us a time that's satisfactory to you?
Well, end of business is 4:30, but I would say it should be submitted earlier so that it can be, given to the council for consideration.
Is 3 p.m. adequate for you?
It's fine for me. I'm just saying that, if
I mean, we
you-
respond to questions on the spot, right? When we're in a council meeting.
Exactly,
So I
exactly.
think if we have a 3 p.m. cutoff, that's
Right.
adequate for that information to be distributed. That's a simple email to council, everyone at the same time. And then we can in kind prepare or formulate a response and go from there. So I think that's a plan. If we're all in agreement.
Well, can I just?
Councilwoman Castellino, yes.
So I hear what you're saying, but again, to make it easier for the clerk, I don't understand why she can't just gather the emails and she read the email at the meeting as opposed to, because there's many times some of us can't get, like if I come straight from work to the meeting, I'm not going to have time to go get that question off my computer. So I think we should all have a fair shot of hearing that question all at the same time.
So with
I
that being
think-
said, could we have a 3 p.m. cutoff? It could be emailed to all of us at our council email, and then it could be read by our clerk of court at the actual meeting into the record for each of us to respond. And then at that point, those who have had an opportunity to review it, that's great, just like we get any other late type of documentation or submission before the council meeting. And if not, it'll be presented to us at the meeting for us to respond.
Well, I still think it should be done, read the first time by the clerk in front of all of us, read it when it's read into the record, just like the rest of the folks that come up to the podium are going to speak. I think that's just the fairest way to do it in case some of us can't see that question until it's read into the record.
But we receive emails from the public anyway.
All right, that's fine. My thing is with the live streaming, if that is something that we don't need a second technician to pay double for the evening. Again, like I said, I talked to the superintendent for the first 2 weeks after, or a couple, I think she said 2 weeks. After they went back in person, they got a couple questions, then they had no questions from the public. People just came because they felt comfortable. And I think that's what's going to happen with us. We videotape the meetings. The meetings go on the air the next day. And then if somebody wants to live stream it, people are always in the audience doing Facebook Live. But I just think we just need to rip off the Band-Aid. But I talked enough about it tonight.
Councilman Rutherford? Or can we listen to what Mr. Kaiser has to say?
Well, I just have a quick comment. I think it may be helpful. So if we're not going to allow for public comment via Zoom, then we don't need Zoom. We just need to, if they're going to send in their comments and questions by a certain time, it's going to be read. It can be videotaped. The purpose of the Zoom is that,
they're asking their questions.
Right. So if that's not the case, if we're not going to provide that opportunity, then we don't even need to consider Zoom at all. That's just my thinking. And I would
With
prefer
Zoom, we
to
would have to wear the
You have a
headsets
moderator?
too in public.
Well, we wouldn't. I mean, there could be, an intermediary between us who either, reads the questions off or whatever the case may be. We can listen to the questions as they come in via public comment, just like we listen now. I mean, that could be displayed somehow in the council chamber. But I think if it's not a real time accepting of questions, then we don't really need the real time technology that Zoom provides.
Got it.
I just, if I can, just so everyone can envision what that might look like. The only way to do it with just one professional would be to issue laptops to each of the council people, and they would be working through a laptop and in public. Otherwise, because we don't have the equipment at this point in time to, and nor would we be able to do it with just one professional, have a camera person, a central camera person that runs it all. So it would require more labor to do that if you didn't use laptops. But with laptops, you can do it with one professional.
Do we have a cost analysis of any of this? Is it going to cost? So if we do it with the laptops and one professional, there's an expense for each of us 5 members to have a laptop?
We have the laptops. They would just be available. You know, we would set them up for you. They would not be ones you take home. You could bring your own, but then you have to be responsible for the technology, you know.
But then we're all on Zoom, aren't we? Aren't we all on Zoom? Like, to me, that is like crazy.
Yes, that's Zoom. That is Zoom.
Right. I think
So
Bill
can we figure this out without taking another
all right,
15
but
or 20
I do
minutes?
want to hear what Ken Kaiser has to say, please.
I mean, look, I just think everybody needs to think this through pretty carefully. And it's not public questioning, it's public comments. And there could be a lot of long comments. Could be, you talk about an email, there could be many paragraphs long. And I'm not sure how that's going to get read to the public or expressed to the public. And it's going to certainly make meetings take longer. They've been doing studies that indicate that Zoom meetings generally take longer than in-person meetings, which is interesting. So it saves time and money in some respects, but it takes more time. So there's just a lot of things to think about. And the whole object behind the Open Public Meetings Act is that everybody is hearing the same thing at the same time. You know, that's why you're meeting and acting in public. So I'm not sure how that's going to work if everybody's got a laptop and there's, you know, questions coming in via computer at the same time, you know, and I don't know how everybody's going to see that and see it at the same time. I just don't know how that's going to work. The public isn't going to have computers in the council chambers. I suppose there could be a screen up that has, you know, and then to the extent they can read it, it's going to be some distance away. There's a lot of practical and perhaps some legal issues, and I don't know how this is all going to shake out. There's a lot of options you can probably do, but you need to think all these things through.
I'd like to make a motion to go back in public the way we've been doing it traditionally. And if we don't get the participation, we could reconsider at that time. We could also change the venue to, like I said, Liberty Middle School as well. So
I
I'd like to
second
make
that motion. So if the motion, as I understand it, is to go back in person like we used to and move to a larger venue for the first meeting.
With the videographer.
Yeah.
I second that motion.
Are we accepting, just a question on that, Art, does that mean we will be accepting questions from the public in writing or no?
No.
Okay. I'm clear.
I know that there's a motion on the floor, but are we sure that it's available?
Yeah.
We said a larger venue. We didn't say where.
Councilwoman Castellino said like Liberty Middle.
So let me go back to my motion. So
Well, it's been seconded. So if you're going to go back to it, you have to amend your motion.
okay, well, I believe what I originally said was to move to go back to council chambers. If we don't get a large participation at that meeting, we can move, you know, let me clarify, move forward to a larger venue after that.
So basically go back to normal, the next meeting.
That's what we're voting on.
And we see that there's a low participation, we'll move the next meeting to a larger venue. And we have time to clear that, but at least for the next meeting in 2 weeks, let's get cranking.
Mr. Kaiser.
Can I just, Mr. Gross, are we bringing back our videographer?
Well, that's a procurement issue, so we'll have to deal with that. You know, I think we don't need to complicate this discussion with how we're going to get it done. We will do what the council wants us to do, and we'll figure that out.
Okay.
Okay. So May 24th. Is it, this is a.
Are we going to vote?
Yeah, I just thought that Mr. Kaiser was going to speak.
I don't know if his hand is still up.
No, I'm sorry. I just didn't, I never took it down.
Oh, okay, sorry.
All right, that's okay.
Okay, so I'll do a roll call vote.
May 24th in person.
Back in person, 2 council chambers, May 24th, the way it used to be, back in the olden days. Councilman Castellino?
Yes.
Councilwoman Matute Brown?
Yes.
Councilman Rutherford?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williams?
Woo-hoo!
Take that as a yes.
Yes.
Council President McCartney?
Yes.
Okay.
With the videographer.
Yes.
And excuse me, Council President or Madam Clerk, just maybe if Madam Clerk could just check with the school district on what, you know, their availability, you know, the next meeting, in case we need to, you know, we can see how it goes,
for
but
June.
yeah, see what kind of availability and whatnot.
Do you know who I would speak with?
You would speak with Buildings and Grounds.
Okay.
Council President, while we are still waiting, I got an update from the Municipal Alliance Committee and wanted to just bring some additional information to the public. There's a playing league of pickleball that I knew nothing about. May is Older Americans Month. There are selling tickets to Salute to Seniors happening on May 19th from 11:30 to 2:30 at Rock Spring. The price is $28. So if you're interested, there's also going to be a pickleball refresher this Thursday at O'Connor Park, followed by a Play the Mayors round robin with Mayor Parisi and former Mayor McKeon from 10 to 12. And then there's
a draw.
Yeah. And then there is a complimentary mindfulness activity that's going to be held, a tea ceremony in Boonton, New Jersey, a Chinese tea ceremony. It's in partnership with people from Boonton, but it's going to be at the West Orange Public Library starting on May 24th, and there's going to be 3 sessions to sign up. So you can go onto the library website for additional information for that. But I just wanted to, look, pickleball, I understand, is a thing. And I want to just let the pickleball players know that it's up and coming. Thank you.
Thank you for the update. ABC, none. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Well, just before you, Mr. Gross was going to give us a update on the pricing. If not, we can post it social media or something later on.
We will have a post on the website tomorrow. Remember, I said that we need to do a better job of advertising this. I have the application, and for some reason on the application, there is no statement.
It's free.
So we'll make some adjustments and make sure that it gets out in all the different venues.
So,
you know what? It may have been free, if I remember correctly.
It's free. It's free.
Yeah. It may have been, now that I remember.
Madam Moderator, we had the flyers up earlier. The pickleball is free.
No, I think they were talking about the parking, but that may
the parking.
I'll let Mr. Gross confirm that, but
it may very well. That may be the answer why it's not on the application.
That was not on the application.
And even more, like, folks, there's 18 spots there, so please take advantage of them. 7 at night to 9 a.m. in the morning. I know you have to move your vehicle in the morning, but I mean, it will help with the situation in the Park Drive neighborhoods.
Absolutely.
immensely.
Yeah. Good night,
Well,
West Orange.
Councilman Rutherford, thank you for bringing that up, and we will find out to make that permit application more comprehensive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Many thanks.
Good night,
Okay.
All right, you
everybody.
ready to
Good
go?
night,
Good night,
everybody.
West Orange. Good night.